Play action, looking downfield. Deep one, down the left sideline. Drops it in! There goes Kenny McIntosh. McIntosh inside the 10, out of bounds. It'll be goal to go.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and 10 from the 25. Handoff this time, Miller. Miller running right, with running room 20, 15, 10. Takes on a tackler at the 5. Spin at his feet, into the end zone. The streak continues. Rushing touchdown in all 12 this year for the Horned Frogs, Kendra Miller. That one for 25 yards out.
The Sikkim 365 Radio Friday show is brought to you by Bird Culchin Ford.
Williams has time against the four-man rush. Backpedaling, scanning, now running out of time. Circling back. Joystick on the move again. Are you kidding me? Caleb Williams dancing, cutting, mesmerizing run by the quarterback. Finally dragged down at the 20. It's a highlight reel tonight.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Go add on with Benson. Steel hammer, stiff arm, and a touchdown.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Bradnell over 100 yards passing to the end zone. Pass is caught. And the Green Waiver back in front. It's Deuce Watts.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lagosse throw, that's intercepted. Broncos have another pick. Oladipo is in. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Friday. A Friday of championship weekend in college football, and one game is underway. In fact, fourth quarter, Akron just took the lead on Buffalo 22-17 early in the fourth quarter, just over 11 minutes left in that game, and two games tonight, including UTSA and also North Texas, and then Utah USC, which has playoff semifinals, playoff implications, and maybe even, of course, Heisman Trophy implications. Tomorrow, Big 12 championship opens up the day with TCU and Kansas State playing at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. And some of you already on the chat, the opening chat from Puduk. This is our time. Go Cats. And then Justin, your time to lose. And Clint, go Beavers. Terry Smith, go Cougs, the number one team in all of men's basketball. Go Frogs. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Hook'em, Texas basketball beat Creighton last night. A lot to get to. It has been another busy day in college football. Want to today at some point do a little bit more on the decision yesterday by Dave Aranda on Ron Roberts and Ronnie Wheat, with some not so much more insight, but maybe a little bit more background to it. Maybe that's the same thing. And then today, Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left. A busy day in college football, so let's get to that. Again, no new news on what Baylor's doing, who's targeted, whatever. I have heard the name of Jim Leonard, only because that would make sense, because he learned a lot under Dave Aranda in the transition when he went from Wisconsin to LSU, and Leonard, of course, was the defense coordinator and then interim head coach. But that's just the name has been popped out there a little bit.
Yeah, that and Gary Patterson. I've seen that too. So, I mean, it's typical. Let's shoot as big as we possibly can. And, hey, maybe Dave Aranda gives Jim Leonard a phone call. Gary Patterson, I highly doubt. And I wouldn't be – I think everybody would be in favor of the defense he runs, not so much the rest of it. But, people are already swinging big and dreaming big, and it's been less than 24 hours, so we'll see what happens.
All right, so let's get to some
By
of
the way,
today's...
I got to mention, y'all realize Buffalo's got to win this game to make a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
They're losing to a two-win Akron team, and they're down 5 with 10 minutes to go, so that's going to be cutting it close to try and make a bowl for the Bulls.
In the MAC championship, and so there's a lot of drama with that. So we will discuss more about yesterday's decision on the Ron Robertson, Ronnie Wheat coaching changes at Baylor. We'll do that, and all of us give our own opinions a little bit about that in a minute. Let's start with this. Iowa State fired their offensive coordinator, Tom Manning. He's been there 6 of the last 7 years. 1 year he spent in the NFL, and strength and conditioning director, Dave Andrew. Both of them are gone. The offensive coordinator's position at Iowa State, obviously you hate it for anyone. There's always people involved here. But that was something after this year. You just knew that could happen, and it did.
Iowa State, and of course Iowa, across the state has the same issue, but they need to find an offense that can be prolific but travel and match their defense because until the last game of the season, they had shots to win every game if they could have scored, in many cases, just 17 points a game. If they average that, then they might be sitting in Arlington right now. Their defense was that good, but they were just so bad on offense this year and so wholly inconsistent that what should have been at least a bowl season was completely derailed by that. So, and the offensive coordinator and Matt Campbell have been together since Mountain Union. They go way back. Very similar situation to Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts, where the relationship was a long time relationship. I think that Matt Campbell will be wise to look outside the Mountain Union box a little bit and, maybe shake things up. You got to have something because there is going to be cold weather in, late October, November in Iowa. So you're going to have to fight that a little bit. But I do think that if you got a little more creative with it, that would be good for the Iowa State faithful.
Craig, this is by no means a surprise because you saw this coming.
By the way, their counterpart, their rival, with big news last night that I think we'll get to as well. For their offensive woes, a big step up. So both Iowa schools making changes offensively, and both desperately needed to. Two of the worst offensive programs in the entire country. Just weird how they're both in the same state, but this was something that had to happen, as you mentioned. That offense kept them from being so much more of what they could have been, given the defense that they had week in and week out. And then, last week against TCU, that was a product of just, I think, TCU wanting to drive the stake in, knowing what was at stake for them, being at home. Let's just take care of business and not have to stress out, for this final game. And they turned it into a celebration. I think Iowa State turned it into the funeral they've been waiting on. That was a proper ending to what has been a very grueling week-to-week season where you had the defense pretty much every week to win games, and your offense just could never seemingly help you out. And then even last week, the defense couldn't even really make any stops. So they're going to lose some talent. I mean, they're losing guys like Will McDonald and others. Already had one big-time player enter the draft this week, and there will be more to have to replace. And so you look around and you're like, okay, well, at least last year off that team where they didn't have any expectations, according to Matt Campbell, which is Bupkis, but regardless, they tried to kind of spin that like, no, that was y'all's expectations, not ours. So they lose all that talent. They actually bring a good bit of talent back, and they turn it into a non-bowl season. So you can't, as a program, just whiff when you have the Will McDonalds of the world and the Brock Purdy's and all those guys and be like, oh, no, it's just that's y'all's expectation, not ours. They got at some point have to win games with these guys. And, I don't know how stocked the cupboard is next year at this point with what they've lost the last 2 years. So I don't know if they missed a window. I don't know if that window was ever really open for them, but I do know that window's broken and is in desperate need of repair right now. And so they had to do something, and it had to be on offense. And so this makes sense.
All right. So then, we mentioned Iowa State.
And you got to answer some questions about Hunter Dekkers, too, like just as far as turnovers, and that's something where you let him grow maybe, but you also need to, you let him grow, but you also, I think, need to look around and say, like, okay, are we sure this is the dude, and go there.
Well, now they'll do that, just like Baylor has to discuss what they're going to do, like many teams. Notre Dame, for example, we'll get into that in a minute, but let's talk about Iowa, because this was a big deal. They have now a new quarterback, or at least they think they have a new quarterback. And, Paul, your thoughts about Well, I just lost his name.
Cade McNamara.
Cade McNamara, late yesterday evening, deciding he's going to transfer from Notre Dame to Iowa.
I think
from
that
Michigan.
Yeah.
God, I'm screwing this whole thing up.
Well, there's so many, Smokey. It's easy. But, yeah, Cade McNamara, look, got Michigan to their first Big Ten title in a very long time last year. J.J. McCarthy is just a much better player athletically. I mean, or a much more athletically gifted player. Better, I don't know, remains to be seen. But they didn't miss a beat once Cade McNamara went out and J.J. McCarthy came in this year. And I think that when you look at it, J.J. McCarthy's the future there. Cade had to transfer. He's got a couple years of eligibility. Iowa's probably a nice fit for him, given that he's not a guy who's going to whip it all over the yard. He's not going to be, in a spread offense, lighting it up. But in an offense like Michigan ran, which is a run-first power offense, that's probably what they're going to run under whoever the offensive coordinator will be at Iowa next year. I think it's a good thing. He's a leader. They're losing Spencer Petras. They lost another quarterback to the transfer portal. They lost a big-time wide receiver to the transfer portal, or at least their big-time wide receiver. So Cade McNamara really stabilizes them going forward.
Can we do a favor and not have Max, two different quarterbacks with the same start of the last name, and McNamara and what J.J. McCarthy does at Michigan? And so, again, Iowa, Craig, they need some oomph. And maybe they'll do something else as well. I don't think it's going to be with the offensive coordinator, because that's, of course, we know Kurt Ferentz's son. But your thoughts about this move?
I think it's something that needed to happen to at least inspire some hope for Iowa fans that the changes were coming. And certainly, if you look at that offense, Brian Ferentz took a bulk of the hatred or the angst and the just the annoyance of that fan base all year long seemingly was directed in one direction, but I don't think that they were exactly like just star-studded at quarterback either. I do think that you could upgrade there, and I think that they probably have. Padilla, you mentioned their backup also joining Petras as far as the transfer portal goes, and I think this is a good move for both sides. Obviously, he was not going to be the starter at Michigan any longer. They've got their guy now. He had already been in that competition, lost that competition. He'd had his time at the helm over the last couple of years, and, it ultimately shook out to where he was going to be riding the bench, barring an injury. So he had to do something. You look at who's most desperate, who's more desperate than Iowa Hawkeyes football for a real deal quarterback. I mean, I can't imagine anybody is more desperate than they are for a little oomph on offense. So, yeah, this shakes the trees a little bit, gives a little bit of energy to an area that has not had much of it, and it's not going to cure necessarily what Brian Ferentz did or did not do that, people were or were not pleased with. But it does give them, I think, an upgrade, and it does give them a little bit of juice on offense. And now you've got several months to add on to that and shape that, and I think it gives you a little bit of excitement for the first time in a while on that side of the ball.
All right, Boston College quarterback Phil Jurkovec is transferred. He's entered the transfer portal, 5,400 yards, 24 games started, lost some games at the end of last year because he was hurt. He now has entered the transfer portal. Oregon State quarterback Chance Nolan has entered the portal, started 17 games for the Beavers. Iowa wide receiver Arlen Bruce, the fourth, enters the portal. So we get a quarterback, and he's gone. And then Allie Jennings, this is one of those guys. This is to like last year with some of the receivers that came from non-Power 5, if that's what's called. Allie Jennings, the third Old Dominion, 115 catches, 2,022 yards, 14 touchdowns the last couple of years, has also entered the transfer portal.
Yeah. At the end of the show, I've got a top 5 about the transfer quarterbacks, but I'll just give you a thumbnail sketch on Phil Jurkovec at Boston College right off the bat. He was really good for them in 2020 and looked like he was really good in 2021. Had a freak hand injury, one of the, hit off the guy's helmet, couldn't play at the end of the year. Boston College's season this year was completely derailed by the fact that their entire offensive line, almost too deep, got injured, and they had defensive linemen who hadn't played offensive line since they were sophomores in high school, and walk-ons as that offensive line.
You mean Baylor in 2017?
Yeah, kind of like that. They were just a mess along the offensive line. Then he got injured this year. They found their quarterback of the future. I believe his name's Emmett Moreland, if I'm correct. Jurkovec's a good player, and he's got a lot of skins on the wall as far as stats go. He's gonna get a lot of heat. He was well thought of. He initially committed to Notre Dame, or he was at Notre Dame and transferred to BC. So we'll see. I think that's going to be an interesting one down the line.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely limped to the finish line. I mean, they had to face some top 10, 15 type teams, but they also, dropped a game to UConn. That would have been more embarrassing in different years. But at least Jim Moore's got them on the upswing. But he really closed the season on a kind of poor note, but he does have a lot of experience. He's going to be a sixth-year guy, third team, as you mentioned, that he'll have been on, but he does have a lot of skins on the wall, so that will be enticing to some folks. He's got a bit of talent. Not the sexiest quarterback in the market by any means, but definitely a guy that will get some suitors.
Drew Pine, Notre Dame, enters the transfer portal.
Yeah, that one, there'll be people hot after him. I mean, he was 8-2 as a starter this year for Notre Dame, and obviously Craig, who's the guy that they lost at the beginning of the year? Tyler Buckner is coming back, so they think highly of him. But I also think that Notre Dame will be in the market for someone, like I said yesterday, like Hudson Card. I don't know about Phil Rakovic going back there, but I think they're in the market for a transfer quarterback as well.
Yeah, I mean, they won some big games with him, but it wasn't because of him. Yeah. It was like he was such and such against top 25 teams. It's like, yeah, let's analyze that a bit more. I mean, he's a fine player, but they could definitely upgrade there, and I think that was something that if you look around at, like, who could most benefit from a quarterback in the transfer portal, I think Notre Dame's got to be right there near the top of the list, right? I mean, in terms of kind of what separated them from perhaps being greater than they were, was certainly some of Drew Pine's play. So, Notre Dame will be an enticing landing spot and certainly has a lot to offer, but this doesn't come as much of a surprise because that was a point of frustration for them throughout the year.
G.J. Kinney official got a press release today from Texas State that said, Marcus, next year when they play against UTSA, he played for Jeff Traylor, who's the head coach at UTSA, also beat him in a playoff game, a memorable one back when he was at a different high school in Canton. So that's official. And Liberty at least reporting that not yet official or anything, but Coastal Carolina's Jamie Chadwell appears to be right now kind of locked into their radar.
No offense to Liberty meant by this, but I don't know what is keeping a Power 5 school from hiring Jamie Chadwell. I don't. I wish I could know. I mean, all he's done is win at Coastal. He runs an offense that, is kind of his offense that looks fun and awesome. He is Ted Lasso personified in real life. He has just got this great vibe about him, and I hope he does really well at Liberty, and I hope he gets a Power 5 job really, really soon because I think he could be very, very wildly successful in the Power 5.
Yeah, I think that's become a really interesting job for not only, making over guys like they did with Hugh Freeze, for example, but also just a school with a whole lot. I mean, regardless of like your take on Liberty and, their background and all of that, like just in terms of a football program, they have tons and tons of money. They have an AD that we know very well. And, in terms of like a rehab spot for, bigger names like a Hugh Freeze for a year, like, yeah, that's a place that's like, yeah, we'll take you and we'll give you a landing spot and let you coach. And they've had to rifle through a bunch of head coaches. They had to rifle through a bunch of quarterbacks this year, but that's a good spot for a coach. Mm-hmm. It is.
Is that the coaching version of Nick Saban's come here, the head coach?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, as far as, it's a program versus a coach, but yeah, in the same vein that like, let's tuck you away and let you just do your thing and kind of get yourself together and then put yourself back out into the world. Yeah, that's what basically you do there. Or at least it feels that's kind of the vibe around the job now at this point. But I mean, they're going to be moving conferences now. They're going to, be getting, I think, a little bit more attention, and they're probably going to be a strong favorite, in their new digs. But that's a place that's interesting for sure. And I think that's a great hire. Sorry, that's a great hire.
When it becomes official.
Yeah, when it becomes official, that's a great hire for Ian McCaw. I mean, he's basically got the checkbook out and can toss some good money and good facilities and things like that at guys. And again, the ability to just have a little bit of a step up for Jamie Chadwell, I think, is the allure there. And I don't know, Paul. I don't know what's like preventing Georgia Tech from hiring him or any other number of schools at this point. I'm not quite sure about that. Those who know him better or know the situation better can chime in on what the delay is there, given how many jobs have opened up, especially the last couple years, and he's just kept on winning and doing so like without even having like his best player, Grayson McCall, for a good chunk. But that's a great hire for Liberty if they make it.
Georgia Tech's, of course, sealed, but it was open, and you wonder if they didn't have any kind of conversations about
he's
that.
There at Coastal Carolina. That's right in ACC territory. Yep. Like the fact, and look, I get hiring Tony Elliott at Virginia. Yeah, that's the dude who's coached a ton of quarterbacks at Clemson. He needed to be a head coach. It was time for him. And there are some that make sense, but look, if I'm North Carolina and Matt Brown retires in a couple years when he's, scratched that itch again, Jamie Chadwell's the first dude I'm calling. If anybody else has an opening in the ACC in a couple years, first dude I'm calling is Jamie Chadwell because he knows the area. It doesn't make sense to me, but again, that's probably why I'm not an AD and I'm here. So
also on the Oregon State transfer, this is from our chat room, Clint Moses, big Oregon State fan. Aiden Shaw's future quarterback, 4-star for the Beavers. So there's one of the things, and there's always stories. Now let's get to.
I do want to say if I mention Oregon State, I got to shout out Damian Martinez, Louisville, Texas, baby. He's had a great year for the Beavers, and been fun to follow his season. And just a young guy too. He'll have a big career there when all is said and done. But very happy to see him thriving this season.
So let's get into yesterday's news a little bit deeper. Ron Roberts and also Roddy Wheat both fired by Baylor. These are two Dave Aranda hires. Now, I know everybody is a hire, and then sometimes you retain maybe who was on the staff prior to that. That's something that Aranda had to look at. That's something that right now at Nebraska, Matt Rule's having to look at. Have not yet seen anybody who has actually been retained. In fact, by the way, Ed Foley, who was a part of his staff at Temple, he was an interim head coach at Temple, and then was on Matt Rule's staff. He was here at Baylor. He now is a part as the special teams coach at Nebraska. So this is part of the deal. But here's the story. Ron Roberts, remember, was someone that was, when older, was a part of Dave Aranda's, like, picking his brain. And so this one here is someone like blood. Ronnie Wheat was someone that worked when LSU, of course, had Aranda, and he worked on the same staff. So that's also someone that Aranda hired. That's how interesting these hires are. We know special teams for Baylor was messed up. The secondary, the backside was messed up. So this was more than just productivity, though. This had to be something where Dave Aranda, and just kind of making some calls or kind of watching the tea leaves, this was one where what Dave Aranda wants, person over player, and what Dave Aranda on a few occasions mentioned about even the staff, when they were not allowing the growth of players, and the one word, and Cole put this in an article today, weaponizing. Remember? About some staff, about whatever. This, to me, goes to show you that this
point in college football right now where, and it's unfortunate for a lot of people, where that, 20 years of loyalty, you have to maybe even know going in that if you don't produce, you got to go, because things move so much faster now. And that, look, if I can get a defensive coordinator in here that can help me get, a couple of higher star recruits and then 4 or 5 transfers that can flip a side of the ball really quick, then you kind of have to do that. Because, again, the trains are always on the tracks now in college football. There's no, sitting around and waiting like, we'll get our coach later, signing days later. You can't do it. You have 2 signing days you have to deal with. You have the transfer portal you have to deal with twice during the year now. You have all that, recruiting your own roster. You just can't let things fester, and you got to move. And it really sucks because there are some things that you're going to have to let go of somebody who's been with you a long time.
I mean, Ron Roberts was a mentor, had been so for a really long time. That was a guy who Dave Aranda learned a lot from and learned under the wing of, and then decides under his first head coaching job to bring him on board as his defensive coordinator. I think that is obviously was a very strong connection. Ronnie Wheat was, as I saw somebody who seemed to know Aranda pretty well, his attaché. Basically his right-hand guy for many years, going back to LSU. He loses Matthew Pallage to Oregon as a co-DC, and that's the call he makes, knowing how important special teams and safeties were to his defense and to his team, special teams. That's the direction that he goes. Aranda's very particular, and those were the guys that he selected. So I think that he's not somebody who makes a move without putting some serious thought into it. And so I think that to go and select those guys, given the past relationships that they had, there's obviously deep ties there. And so to make the moves he did yesterday, he obviously put some deep thought into it. And to make those moves, I'm sure, were not easy. But they were not without, a lot of, I'm sure, brainstorming and reflection and questioning and all those different types of things. So if Dave Aranda felt that he needed to cut ties with a guy who's basically been his right-hand guy for years now and who he brought in to fill some big spots, and the guy who was his mentor at one point in time and is part of the reason why he is where he is, then I think that doesn't really need an explanation. That goes without saying that was a tough call, and that goes without saying that that was a tough decision for him to have to make, and I'm sure a tough conversation for him to have. So, big balls move, and what you have to do, because otherwise you don't do that, and you end up in a situation where you're not basically set in stone no matter what you do, like Ferentz is in Iowa, where he can have the heat of, the OC's not working out. He can kind of stem that tide a little bit because of his track record. Dave Aranda doesn't have that track record in Waco. As beloved as he already is, he can't afford to just kind of wallow for more than a year or two. He's got to win games. He has to. That's the standard. That's what you have to do in this environment. And so, if you bring in close people, sometimes you got to get rid of close people, and that's the risk that you run when you do that. So that's the risk that he ran, and unfortunately, it worked out one year with one of those guys, and this year it didn't work out.
And I can promise you this is not a decision he came to, rapidly.
No, this wasn't This is one he probably started having some thoughts maybe even 2 months ago.
Dave Aranda is the kind of thoughtful person, though, that if you were eating with him at a restaurant, you'd have to tell the waiter, come back in a few minutes. He's still really thinking about what he wants, because he is a very thoughtful person who carries out things.
You can be thoughtful but still be cold-blooded in a way with decisions you have to make. Well, he's now made staff changes his first 3 years as a head coach, though. And I made this comment yesterday. There was some debate about it. Yes, he's a first-time head coach. This is now year 3, and I said this about coordinators. The one with Fedora, that made a lot of sense. This one with Roberts, based on this year, possibly, but also that's what he does. If he doesn't think you're going to help them get to a next level going forward, he is not afraid to pull the trigger. But you have to also eventually realize these were his hires. Ron Roberts, as Craig mentioned perfectly, who Ron Roberts was. Ronnie Wheat, same thing. So these are his hires, and you got to start hitting these hires, because the next thing you know, you look around, as I said, and you are the common denominator in a room, especially when it comes to coordinators. And people can disagree with me on that. It doesn't mean I think he's making the wrong decisions. It just means you got to be very careful if you have to keep making these types of decisions. One other note about the story yesterday in theathletic.com, and Paul's got a quarterback transfer note. Max Olson and Mitch Sherman, both great writers of what they do. The story about the 70-some day hunt for a new coach to replace Scott Frost. One of the things that was mentioned is that Dave Aranda reached out to Nebraska. From all of my information, that is not true. That is not true based on agents reaching out. It wasn't that, which could also be covered up. That was not true. I don't know what Trev Alberts may have said, but according to what my sources are telling me is that was never really any kind of a thing that Dave Aranda reached out to Nebraska. And if he did or his agent did, it wouldn't blame him. But that is not what I'm being told from what my sources are telling me. Akron, 22-17. 3 minutes and 16 seconds left. They just picked off a pass. They have the football, trying to win a game at 2-9 to win the MAC championship and knock Buffalo out of a bowl game.
Isn't this just a makeup game for Buffalo's snow out? Yeah. It's not the MAC championship.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's to end the season. This is the one they had.
2-9 ain't playing for a conference championship game.
Yeah, this isn't 4A in Texas.
Or NEA.
Or NEA, yeah. By the way, breaking transfer news. We need like a red alert thing. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Haynes King, Texas A&M in the transfer portal. Not a surprise at all. Never worked out for him there. Tons of injuries. Just didn't seem like they built the offense around what he could do either. And that, I think, is probably, that kind of goes back to what Jimbo's problem has been is, he's trying to fit square pegs in round holes. A 4-star prospect coming out of Longview, had a great run, won the state championship game. We did a fantastic game against Midway his junior year that went right down to the wire that he actually did lose, and he didn't lose many of those, but he is now also in the transfer portal.
Yeah,
not any surprise.
Yep, not any surprise. He didn't have a very good year, obviously, and that was a lot of recruiting hype, though. Man, you think about how many recruits get landed and how many off-season games get won by just the hype of recruiting, and ultimately, he did not live up to the hype in any way, shape, or form, based on kind of what the buzz was. Now, not everybody was sold on him to begin with. But he was pretty highly thought of and highly heralded by the time he, finished up his career at Longview, which is a terrific program and one of the best in the country. But yeah, it just wasn't jiving at A&M. There was no way I think you could have probably trotted him out there next year to the satisfaction of really any Aggie diehard based on what they've seen so far. And then, by the end of the year, I feel like they at least felt like they had a little bit of a different direction that they could go in that was maybe a little sunnier, although there's still some major questions to be answered there. But he wasn't going to be one of their answers. But I look forward to seeing, what the market is for a guy like that. There's several different college football accounts keeping track of everything, college football websites, and you just go look at any of them with a quarterback list, and it's like 25 guys deep at this point, and like 15, 17 of them are for like Division I program, like the started games, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then, obviously some highly heralded backups that maybe started a game or two, like a Haynes King, who was a starter and a backup, a Hudson Card, who had to be a starter, but was also mostly a backup, and then a bunch of starters that are, now in there. So it's a very diverse pool with a lot of talent, and a lot of interesting names. And Haynes King, that's one that I think you're probably looking at taking a step down, whereas some other guys are probably looking at staying as is or taking a step up. He's probably somebody that takes a slight step down, I would think. But, yeah, that's not a surprise.
By the way, Akron fumbled. Buffalo has the ball 2nd and 4 inside the 40 with 2:16 left in that game. They're right at the 40-yard line. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Mike Scarborough covers LSU. They have Georgia tomorrow in the SEC championship game. Grayson Grundhafer and his thoughts about how any of the coaching changes, if at all, have any impact on some of the players who are committed, and his thoughts about the change in the staff with Ron Roberts and Ronnie Weed on the defensive side of the football. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com with Dr. Rob Maxey and a great staff inside the Central Texas marketplace, just on the southern part of Waco off I-35 and the access road to Highway 6. I've been inside the building. Was there one time just to kind of visit when they first contacted us back when we first began this show. And then also I've been there as a patient. I've been inside their MRI machine 3 or 4 times. I've also dealt with their techs and specialists, and they are elite. Getting the appointment was very simple. Not because I endorsed them, because that's how they do their business. And there wasn't a long wait. There was hardly anybody there when I got there. That doesn't mean they don't have customers or patients. It's just that's the way they run their business. And a state-of-the-art technology MRI machine that is, well, as good as it gets. I've had it shoulder. I've had my abdomen. I've had other reasons to have an MRI. And every time I've had an answer from Dr. Maxey or somebody else before the end of the night. And I've had one MRI that was in the evening after the show. They also can save you a ton of money, $497 or less every single time. Get the picture of what hurts so much and save a ton of money at IdealMRI.com.
Cars priced right, both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck, it's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We're now joined by Mike Scarborough, TigerBait.com, LSU, Georgia, SEC championship game. Mike covers the Tigers, and of course, coming off that very not good look against A&M at Kyle Field last Saturday. Mike, thanks for your time. Obviously, I mean, they can bounce back. What are the chances? On a scale of 1 to 100, do you give LSU for beating Georgia?
10%?
Okay.
It's look, LSU's not they're not in a good way physically right now. Not having Bernard Converse in College Station, we'll see what he's like this week if he's able to go. Jaden Daniels hurt his ankle. I know what Brian Kelly said yesterday, that he's had a good week of practice. I'm not too sure about that. We'll see. We might be seeing a good dose of Garrett Nussmeier tomorrow.
How confident should people be in Garrett Nussmeier to run the offense? Obviously, be different because one of the best things that Jaden Daniels does is on third down. I mean, he can just get that first down and keep the drive going.
Yeah, and that's what Georgia does. I mean, their opponents have a 26% conversion rate on third downs, and that's something that Brian Kelly talked about early in the week, is not getting in those long distances. And that's something that when Jaden Daniels is 100%, you know, you don't want to put him in a bunch of third and eights. But with his ability to move him out and take off and run and get to the marker, he's done that all season long, but he wasn't very effective at it last weekend. And you had some receivers with some drops. There was a whole lot of things that just didn't go right for LSU and College Station. But I warned everybody that whole week that something like that was going to happen. A&M was going to give LSU their best shot. It was their Super Bowl, not bowl eligible, and sure enough, it happened. So, but LSU has still exceeded expectations. I said starting the season that I thought the A&M game would decide whether LSU's 7-5 or 8-4, and so they finished at 9-3, and that's just we were calling anybody who was predicting LSU to go 9-3 in the summer. We were calling them homers. So it's really astonishing what Brian Kelly did when he inherited 39 scholarship football players.
So if I were to ask you how deflating was that loss last week, would it not be as deflating because they're still going to the SEC title game and they're exceeding expectations? Or
well, what will be deflating is if things go to where what is expected. I mean, Georgia's a 16, 17-point favorite depending on where you look, and so if that goes to that happens that way, or LSU gets beat significantly, they've all of a sudden gone from 2 weeks ago being a possibility to get into the playoffs with 2 losses to all of a sudden not being in a New Year's Day bowl, and then possibly even if they get beat badly, being overtaken by South Carolina for the Citrus Bowl and ended up somewhere lesser than that. So, but at the same time, it's like, look, there was some weeks in September where people were wondering if this team could get to 6-6. Mm-hmm. And so it's look, that win over Alabama was a huge deal for the season. And I just think the program is ahead of schedule regardless. But we'll see how it plays out here. See, the other problem you get into is if you're not in anything major bowl wise, what are your opt-outs going to be?
Yep.
How many opt-outs do you have? And so that's the problem at places like LSU, that if you have a number of opt-outs, you go to a mid-level bowl game and you look downright awful because most of a good number of your big-time players aren't out there playing for you.
What is their recruiting picture right now with signing day just around the corner? Kelly obviously has done a nice job. LSU always is in the mix. Where are they for right now?
Well, look, they had a couple of decommitments. One of them was a head scratcher a couple of weeks ago. A kid decommitted and committed to Auburn without knowing who their next head football coach was going to be. And Auburn's throwing NIL money around. I'm told that they got a $13 or $14 million war chest that they're spreading around. Another kid's talking about visiting there. It's on LSU's commitment list. But I think we're about to see a whole lot of crazy. I think the transfer portal, what we're going to see, kids that hop in there next week and the next few weeks, and then how quickly some of this – I think some of the turnaround times that we're going to see where a kid hits the portal and then is announced where he's going, it's going to be so bang that it's going to be obvious to everybody that the tampering that's been going on is off the chain.
DeColdis Crawford, one of those guys you think could wind up at LSU?
No, because I think LSU parted ways with him when he was a commitment to LSU. He had the name. He got an early offer from Ed Orgeron's staff, but I don't see him being a receiver that is at the quality at the SEC level.
Mike, Georgia obviously a juggernaut, as you mentioned, the big point spread here, undefeated on the season, bound for the playoff no matter what, and plenty of questions on LSU's side, particularly starting with Daniels and his health. But where do you see some rays of light? Where do you see some openings, if any, as far as this matchup goes that could be to LSU's advantage or things that they could potentially do to mess with the Bulldogs?
Well, one of the things that is said about Georgia is that their secondary is not very good. Well, you have to have a quarterback who's willing to let it go. And look, I think another part of the problem that you have is that you've got some wide receivers for LSU that, in some recent games are not finishing off their routes, or maybe they're not going 100% on their routes because their confidence level in Daniels getting them the ball and where it's going to be that it's not going to be there. And so, I think they've got to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to need a turnover or two from Georgia. I think they need to start quickly. Don't get behind a score or two immediately. Jaden Daniels comes out and or he ends up not being the guy, and Nussmeier goes out there. I think this one could really get away from LSU. The third-party ticket market, all those tickets are going to Georgia fans. They're lining up, and they really want this. People forget they did not win the SEC championship last year. They were national champions, but they were not SEC champions. You got a group of guys on that team that would like to get that SEC championship ring. I think LSU's 3-1 or something like that against 4-1 against Georgia in SEC title games. They have not had a very good record in these games, despite it being a home field for them.
As far as LSU being a surprise for what they are doing, and by the way, Akron just was picked off. Buffalo beat Akron 23-22. That's 20 seconds left, last play of the game. They're going to win that game. The LSU team's obviously been a surprise where they are. Who was the second most surprising team? Was it South Carolina, the way they ended? And I'm talking in a good way. Who would be in that mix? I mean, Tennessee, I guess, would have to be a part of that. But anyone else?
Yeah, and look, had LSU beaten A&M, you tell me who's SEC Coach of the Year if you don't just give all the awards to the team that wins the championship and has the undefeated record, right?
Yeah.
Typically, if you look at an all-SEC team, to the victor goes the spoils. LSU saw that in 2019. They got all the kids on their SEC and won all the postseason awards. But in reality, Georgia was supposed to be there or in the mix. But, LSU was picked fifth in the SEC West. And they're going to Atlanta and beat Alabama and beat Auburn, Florida, the first coach to beat Auburn, Florida on the road ever. Saban never did that. In 2003, Chris Leak came to Tiger Stadium and beat LSU when they won the national championship over Oklahoma.
Mike, thanks for your time and enjoy. Appreciate it. It'll be interesting to know what happens. LSU's been obviously capable of pulling off the big one with what they did against Alabama, and then obviously smoked by Tennessee, and then the surprising loss to A&M to end the season. Mike Scarborough, TigerBait.com with us on LSU, Georgia, SEC championship game. That is, of course, tomorrow afternoon. So Buffalo wins, become bowl eligible. Tonight you have the UCF Tulane or the UTSA game with North Texas, and then USC, of course, and Utah for the Pac-12 championship game. Coming up.
I want to go over that Buffalo thing real quick. They had a 4th and 10 with a little over a minute to go. The Akron had fumbled it back. They had to review it. They had to review the touchdown after they got the turnover. Buffalo had scored. Touchdown stands. Missed the 2-point conversion, so they were only up 1. Didn't get the 2-point to kind of try to make it at least a field goal, but it didn't matter because they got an interception after a kickoff out of bounds, and that was it. Seal it with a pick at the end of the game. So wild kind of turn of events there at the end. Scoring, missing the 2-point, kickoff out of bounds, pickoff. And, they're going bowling now, so good for Buffalo.
And that was after Akron had intercepted Buffalo, got the ball back, fumbled, recovered their own fumble, and then turned around and fumbled again, lost it, and then they get the pick. As you said, it was a drop pass right through the kid's hands, and Buffalo does get to 6 wins. And so that's, of course, the MAC championship is tomorrow. Tonight, UTSA, North Texas, and again, Utah and USC. We'll have our picks of 7 conference championship games today, a little bit after 4. Coming up next, Grayson Grundhafer. Yesterday's decisions on the staff have anything to do with any response from recruits or commits, and on top of that, his thoughts about the changes on Dave Aranda's staff. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. I was there this morning, my car, I got a text that said, hey, it's time for you to come back in and get your car looked at as far as an oil change and just check all the battery of whatever needs to be checked, that everything was perfectly clean. I did get new oil change and all that. That was great. And then at the end, they also said, by the way, you may want to look at your 2 front tires. It looks like those are getting to the point where you have to make a decision on getting 2 new tires. And I kind of knew that anyway. Sat in the room with Ted Teague along with AJ. AJ's who sold me my car when I was at Alan Samuels back in May of 2020, and sat there and talked about everything, about business, about Baylor, about college football, about NIL, and about everything. and it was a lot of fun. It's really, you don't have a lot of time to do that. Neither does Ted, but it was early enough in the morning where I had a chance to visit with him and had great time with those two. One who sold me the car, and of course, one of our sponsors of this show. The service department was elite. Colin was the one that handled my car, and he was fantastic. It's Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Genco's Black Friday Cyber Monday auto loan special is here. Apply for your auto loan online and receive a 0.15% loan discount. Plus, every auto loan gets 90 days with no payments. Then have a chance to win 90 more days with no payments. Black Friday Cyber Monday only at Genco. This special runs till December 2nd. Every online application gets an additional discount plus 90 days no payments. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to gencofcu.org, member NCUA.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your home for holiday favorites for parties or time with the family, with various specials available while supplies last in store or ordering by phone, including 8 to 10 pound half spiral hams at $4.15 a pound, 12-pound pit hams at $4.35 a pound, 8 to 22 pound bone-in hams for $3.40 a pound, 14 to 16 pound whole raw turkeys at $2.85 a pound, and $4.80 a pound for 9 to 12 pound whole smoked turkeys, 6 to 8 pound mini pit hams for $5.99 a pound. Limit 4 of each item per customer. Call in advance to ensure availability or drop by Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Waco Custom Marketplace, your full-service butcher shop for customized orders or cuts of your favorite steaks or beef tenderloin or specially ordered prime rib roast. WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com, co-host of the Bearcast, also is our college football analyst, among many others, and handles all of everything, basically recruiting. Joins us on 365 Sports. Grayson, let's start with your reaction to yesterday's news about Ron Roberts and Ronnie Wheat both out.
Right. I mean, what a crazy day, right? To see that kind of come on, at the exact same time, the report, of course, by Colt Barber. And, it was one of those situations where you saw a defense that had just played so good in the 2021 season. And there were these huge expectations that in 2022, they would take another step forward and, potentially be better. I know some people thought they could be even better than the 2021 defense. I think that was probably unfair expectations, but I think one consistent theme is if you looked at all the guys on the defense, there were very few guys that I think you could point to and say, wow, he had a great offseason and made a big jump in the defense. And I think that was a problem. You didn't see the same kind of development that you saw from the 2020 season to the 2021 season. And I think, that showed up on the field. So apparently, Dave Aranda decided that it was time to make a move. And we saw after the 2020 season when he revamped the entire offensive staff, how well that worked. And so I think we could see the same thing with this move right here. And now Dave is going to be able to formulate a staff that he feels like will be more cohesive and just in general better going into the 2023 season.
Grayson, I think that the defense was a little bit overshadowed by the kind of up and down nature of Blake Shapen this year, and fans like to hone in on the quarterback. But when you really look at the offensive output that they had this year, if the defense and special teams had just been a little bit better, this is not a 6-6 team.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly said when you say the offense had some really high highs and some really low lows. And this defense was not good enough to cover up for those lows, if that makes sense. And so even when the offense played well, like the West Virginia game, the defense just had one of their worst performances of the year, and it cost them. And I'm not going to say that the offense was perfect in that game because they weren't. They had some costly turnovers. But I would also say if you watch that game, there's no way you could leave that game and think, wow, the defense played a solid game of football, because they did. And we saw that at various times this year. Against Oklahoma this year, they gave up a ton of points and a ton of yards. Late in games, when you look at the Kansas State game, they got ran over. And then, of course, the Texas game at the end of the year was just kind of this just what's going on type dilemma where we haven't seen a Dave Aranda defense get ran over like they did in the fourth quarter against Texas. And you had kind of seen a team that just kind of looked defeated. So, yeah, I'm right there with you as far as the defense was not to the level that I think we all expected, and the defense wasn't able to make up for some of the mistakes of the offense. But make no mistake about it, both sides of the football had major faults in what led to a 6-6 season. They both need to be better a year from now.
So speaking of Blake Shapen, sort of, kind of, he's in what is a little bit of an emptier quarterback room at the moment. Look around and he's all by himself actually at the moment. Now that Kyron Drones has entered the transfer portal, Austin Novosad, obviously not arriving just yet. Grayson, what do you make of Drones jumping into the portal, leaving the door open perhaps for a return to Waco? I don't think that comes as much of a surprise, but just kind of wrapping your head around everything the last 24 hours. What do you think about the quarterback room?
Well, the Kyron Drones news, I think, was one of those that I'm not going to say that it was expected, but I think that we all kind of got this sense of, what's he going to do? Is he going to come back and try to compete with Blake Shapen for the job next year, or is he going to sit back and say, hey, I didn't get my shot this year. Maybe it's time to go look for a place where I can for sure be the starter. But whatever the case is, him leaving the door open to come back makes a lot of sense, because if he does come back, he'll get a chance to compete for the starting spot. But also him entering the portal makes sense for him, right? Because he can potentially find a place where he can start right away. Now, as far as Baylor goes, they're going to have to figure out the quarterback room because you have Blake Shapen. You're going to get Austin Novosad here in, I guess, a little over a month or so. And so he'll be there for spring ball, which is great. That's great news. But you still need more than just 2 scholarship quarterbacks in your quarterback room, which leads me to believe that they're probably going to have to take a transfer, or they're going to have to figure out a way to maybe take another high school guy. They have a lot of work to do. And it's kind of a weird situation to be in because during this whole period of figuring out the 2023 class, they decided to not take a 2022 quarterback. They decided to add walk-ons instead of adding, another scholarship quarterback, which worked out fine, I guess, for this year. But going forward, now you're sitting there and you're like, okay, we're going to have 2 scholarship quarterbacks and not a lot of depth behind them. And as we saw this year, Blake Shapen missed a game. And we saw the year before, Gary Bohannon missed 2 games and Blake Shapen had to come in. And we've seen in the past with Baylor quarterbacks, where guys get hurt and backups have to step in. And we've seen them go as deep as, 4 deep in previous seasons. So it's going to be really important that they try to find someone to create more depth and more competition going into spring football and, of course, into the fall.
Obviously, go ahead. You're going to ask.
How vulnerable do you think Blake Shapen would really be if they brought somebody in?
That's a good question. I personally believe that it needs to be an open competition, which leaves any quarterback very vulnerable. I mean, we saw this past year with Gary Bohannon coming back after playing really solid football and leading the team to a Big 12 championship and Sugar Bowl. We saw Blake Shapen, who had a great end of the season, take the job from him in the spring. So you're going to be vulnerable in those situations, but I also think that that's kind of what Blake Shapen needs at this point. I'm not going to sit here and say he was terrible this year because he wasn't, but I'm also not going to sit here and say he was great because he wasn't. He was somewhere in between. So this is a guy that needs to take big steps this offseason. And I think he's going to get pushed by a guy like Austin Novosad. And then if they bring in someone, he's going to get pushed as well, which, again, I think that competition will breed a different level of play from the quarterback position next year. And that's what Baylor, frankly, needs.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I will ask this question. If you were drafting and it was Blake Shapen and Austin Novosad, and you had to make a draft, that was going to be your starter, you were the one making that decision, who would you pick?
That's a great question, Smokey. And I would say that I think it's kind of twofold, right? Because I think the answer right now would have to be Blake Shapen because we've never seen Austin Novosad pick up a football on a college football field. We've never seen him go through, the conditioning and the weight room stuff that you have to go through to be a college football athlete. We've never seen him go through the playbook study and learn a Jeff Grimes scheme before. I just think there's so many question marks. Now, if you're going to ask me, I get to pick one for the future of Baylor, so I get, 3 or 4 years in this decision, then it's Austin Novosad for sure because the upside, the talent, everything that you see from him, he's got it all. He's got all the characteristics that make up a great college quarterback and a potential pro quarterback. But if you're asking me just for next year, I think it's really hard for anyone to say that someone other than Blake Shapen should be the starter based on the fact that there's not a lot of competition in the room, and then your only other option is a true freshman quarterback who we've never gotten to see throw a football in a college game. So I think that's where I'd kind of be at right now.
I know there's notes on the premium side of the board for subscribers and whatnot, so I know you can't reveal everything in regards to Baylor's game plan at the moment, but what's raised your eyebrows interest-wise in terms of the transfer portal and recruiting here as I don't know about this December 21st National Signing Day, Grayson, for one, but as we still have another 3 weeks to go, what's kind of bubbling on that front as far as personnel goes?
Right. So the signing day is December 21st, like you mentioned, and it runs through the 23rd. So Baylor's still looking at filling a couple spots maybe in this 2023 class. I know Hutchinson Community College, JUCO nose tackle, Jarrell Boykins is a guy that they're definitely looking at. I think he'll probably take a visit here in the next week or so. And he's a big-time prospect as far as being, 6'3", 322 pounds. He fills a position of need for them if they were able to land him because they're likely going to lose Apu to the NFL draft. They're going to lose Sheedy, who played nose tackle. They're going to lose Jackson Player, who also played some nose tackle. So they really need to figure out a way to shore up that position. And Boykins is the guy that could do that in the interim, because I think they're going to need to find probably 2 nose tackles so that they have some depth there to go along with these young guys that they have with Trey Emery, who was in the 2022 class. And then, of course, the 2 young guys, DK Kalu and Brendan Bett, who both could potentially play nose tackle as well. But those guys need some time. So they need to figure out some guys who can fill that position in the immediate future. So that's kind of the first part of it. Then as far as the transfer portal goes, guys, if you think the past couple days have been crazy with the transfer portal, just wait till Monday when you start seeing all the guys who, said, hey, I'm gonna enter the portal. They're going to officially enter on the 5th, and you're going to see a ton of underclassmen as well enter on December 5th as well. It's going to be a crazy day, so you're going to see a lot of talent just kind of go towards the portal, and that's also why this Baylor staff's going to wait a little bit and try to figure out, hey, who's there, figure out who's actually in the portal, figure out who fits their needs, and then kind of go with it from there. The only one that I know Baylor is in on currently out of the transfer portal where I know, hey, they've offered this guy, I know for a fact that there's a ton of interest, is the Stanford grad transfer safety Jonathan McGill, who has, at Coppell was a defensive MVP for his district his senior, and had a really, really productive year at Stanford this past season. So he's a guy that I know they really, really like. He's a guy who I think fits what they need as far as he was a captain at Stanford. He could play the star position at Baylor. He could also play a couple other spots at safety, but I really view him as a very, very good star prospect and the guy that could come in, contribute right away, and be very much a Jalen Petrie light for this defense, which I think is something they were missing this past year.
Grayson, last question is, has there been any at all concern from anybody who's committed to Baylor on the changes in the staff?
I'm glad you asked this question because I kind of wanted to give an answer to this. But all the defensive guys that I've talked to, I think the constant theme is, wow, completely shocked by the news, had no idea this was coming, this is crazy, but still locked into Baylor and very much trust Dave Aranda and his process. And that's kind of the news that I've gotten, from 5 or 6 of the defensive prospects in this class. So it very much seems like, shocked that it happened, can't believe that it happened, but also we trust Dave Aranda, we trust this program, still very much locked into Baylor. So right now I would say of the guys that I've talked to, it hasn't been all of them quite yet, but of the ones that I have gotten a hold of, it's been very positive as far as, their commitment to Baylor and kind of them looking forward to coming to Baylor, even with the loss of Ron Roberts and Ronnie Lee.
If you don't mind a follow-up, is there any kind of discussion among those who are prospects or commitments or in recruiting circles that Aranda is churning his coaching staff a lot and you never know who you might play for?
No, absolutely not. I haven't gotten any indication of that from any prospects. I know that there's a lot of speculation on Jeff Grimes about him potentially, going to this place or that place again. I think that my guess is he would only leave if it's a head coaching job, just based on kind of what I've heard and his track record. I'm not sure that he would leave for that. He would be one, of course, that would be very interesting if he did leave. That could shift some things. I think in this specific instance and kind of what you're talking about, no, because frankly, when Dave Aranda has decided to make a decision to go with a new coordinator or make a coaching change, it's worked out for this team and for this program. And so I think these guys very much trust what Dave Aranda is building, and they trust his judgment at the end of the day.
Thank you, Grayson. Have a great weekend. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com, co-host of the Bearcast, recruiting coordinator and college football analyst with us. And coming up next, there are all these conference championship games, including a couple of them tonight and a bunch tomorrow. And we'll have our picks as we're right all even at the end of last weekend as far as our wins and losses of our picks. We'll have that next on 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street in Waco, behind the bank, a hidden gem. Look, they have great promotions that go on all the time. They throw them up on Instagram. They've always got some kind of cool display in the store of some new product or some new variety of a classic old product. Whatever they have, they've got great stuff there. They have the best selection of locally sourced Texas bourbons anywhere. Balcones, Devil's River, TX, all that stuff. Garrison Brothers, fantastic whiskeys. Best selection of craft beer. Best selection of just pretty much anything. And great customer service and a speedy drive-through window. I pretty much exclusively shop there when I'm getting pretty much anything when it comes to beer and spirits and all that. That's where I go. They're fantastic. And, you know, always help me out. I had to buy a bottle of wine a couple weeks ago for a friend's birthday. Really didn't kind of know my way around that as much, and they gave me 3 great recommendations, and then I had to sit there and stare at 3 bottles of wine for 10 minutes before I finally did make a decision. But it was great. They were awesome. My friend loved the gift, and everything worked out fine. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank, also available on DoorDash.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. But when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Here we go, first play. The second half, he wants a deep shot. Again, and he's got McMillan. Jalen McMillan. Goodbye. Touchdown. Are you kidding? 75 yards on the first play from scrimmage.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
We have had...
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We have had a lot of college games to pick throughout the week, of each week, sometimes 6, 7 games or so. We are all three completely dead even. And the one game last week that was I had Kentucky, you guys had Louisville. There was the Washington State game. Craig had Washington State. We are all now, and then last week I think we missed on a few others. But we're even as we head into this championship weekend. Here are the picks, and there's not much change except one game here.
Yay. If we had a diversity coordinator, they wouldn't be real happy with this because there is not much difference here.
So, again, dead even at the top. We have all three, USC against a team that beat them. It was in Utah. It was a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. It was a gutsy, ballsy call by the coach, and we all have USC winning against Utah.
USC just feels like they're hot right now and would love to get another shot at Utah. So I still think it's going to be a great game. So these first two, I think, are kind of going to go they're going to be tense for especially the teams that are in the top 4 that need them to stay in the playoff.
Give me USC here. It was a really super tight game last time. And, yeah, Utah got the better of Whittingham got the better of Lincoln Riley. But I think that Lincoln Riley is going to get round 2. I think that Caleb Williams is going to be your Heisman Trophy winner, and I don't think many people question that. And I do think it'll be a great game, but I feel like USC's got some mo right now, especially at the quarterback spot. But getting some guys healthy on offense, and the defense is still creating turnovers, despite the fact that about 10 weeks ago people said they couldn't keep this up. 8 weeks ago said the same thing. Here we are 2 months later at the end of the season, and they're still doing enough. And I think they've gotten better as the season has gone along. So I like everything about USC right now. This isn't so much a Utah thing, but then again, it kind of is. Tayshaun Thomas is not going to play in this game. Cam Rising has been very sort of he was really good in that last game, but I don't expect that again from him. Quite like we saw in the first go-around. So for all those reasons, I'm going USC here.
I've watched USC more in the last probably last 2 or 3 games than I did throughout most of the year. Doesn't mean I didn't. Highlights, packages, YouTube packages, I've been able to do that. But I'll take USC. I do think it'll be a hell of a game, but that's it. Okay, so all three of us take the try. That's tonight. That's it tonight. It's great to go home and watch that tonight. TCU.
Let's do them last. Let's do this
all right,
game
go
last.
to Georgia and LSU. Yeah, you never know. LSU, we had Mike Scarborough on earlier, and he doesn't give them much of a chance either.
Had I been anywhere in LSU's camp before that happened after talking to Mike, I'd be like, well, I think that's gone. A lot of injuries, and even if Jaden Daniels plays, I don't see it being his, best effort because of, coming off that anger, dealing with that ankle injury. So, yeah, I like the Bulldogs in this one.
If Daniels was healthy, I'd still pick Georgia, but at least it would give me a little bit of a better feeling that he could try and run around a little bit, but he's going to need to throw, and I don't like him dinged up in this game. I like Georgia regardless, but I especially don't like LSU with Daniels dinged up. So, yeah, give me the Bulldogs. I didn't take long to think about this one.
I didn't have to even think about it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I have Georgia. This is the one that's interesting, Tulane and UCF. And, Craig, you have the Knights.
Yeah, I do. Still a little bit of a question about quarterback health, playing in New Orleans again, which I don't actually love. But, this one's a bit of a pick'em game, and I'm going with the Big 12 bound Knights to get this one. So, yeah, weird playing and basically, twice in like a month, basically. So a little weird there, playing in New Orleans twice. But, I do like if John Rice Plumlee is ready to go and all that kind of stuff. I do like their ability to break off some, good plays in the running game. And I don't know, this is super tight. I defaulted to UCF here.
I have been on the Gus bus, as you guys know. UCF kind of actually helped me turn the tide of my pick'ems this season. That was the the big one when they beat Cincinnati. But just going back to Tulane again, I really like the way that Willie Fritz has coached this team up. They're really physical. They're violent. I mean, they get after you. And the uncertainty at quarterback, what's going to happen. Although both those guys have been able to win games for UCF, I just, again, pick 'em game. I went with Tulane this time. It's always difficult to beat a team twice. It's especially difficult to beat a team twice when you have to do it both times at their place.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I leaned here.
I'll take Tulane. They beat Cincinnati. I take Cincinnati. I like Willie Fritz. I like the fact that they got all the distractions out of the way early when that didn't happen with Georgia Tech. Or I just take Tulane. I think it's a great game. It's another great game. And then also Boise State and Fresno State tonight. And we all have the Broncos across the board.
Yeah, they've just been playing really well down the stretch. So going with them, although, Fresno State, has the quarterback back when they lost by 20 to Boise State early in the season. Hayner wasn't there, so that could certainly make a difference. But I just like what the Broncos have put together down the stretch run this season.
Yeah, Taylor Green's been really good. Obviously, had to make a change there in the coaching staff, and it's worked out well for Boise State in their offense. I like not only Green, but George Halani as well, and I feel like they've got some good momentum right now. So, give me Boise State.
All right, so me too. And then Michigan, Purdue, this is one that it will still have a huge viewing audience. It's the Big Ten, but Michigan coming up, and unless they just completely have partied all week or thought about, okay, well, we can just throw our shoulder pads out on the field. Purdue can be fun, but I think this is a mismatch from start.
Oh, yeah. I think even that core, Donovan Edwards showed what kind of a dog he is last week. I mean, just absolutely ran roughshod over the Buckeyes in the second half. J.J. McCarthy is taking that step, and he plays with a lot of confidence and swagger. Michigan fans are going to love him for years to come. So, yeah, Purdue's, had a nice run to get here, but, I don't think it's going to be a great day for them at Indianapolis tomorrow.
Yeah, I didn't stew on this one all that long. Purdue's got a chance to do some things on offense, but ultimately I just like Michigan in pretty much every regard.
All right, Clemson and North Carolina. Now, this one, this is not like but we all picked Clemson. North Carolina's been up and down lately.
So is Clemson.
I'll take the team with at least the heritage here or lineage or whatever you want to call it. I'll take Clemson. And we all did.
I really think that's what it comes down to. I mean, I went back and forth because, look, when Drake May and North Carolina get going on offense, man, they're tough to stop. But they can't stop anybody on defense, and I think that'll be good for Will Shipley. But the quarterback position has been, really up and down for Clemson, so much so that they've got callers calling in on Dabo's show and getting into little, verbal spats with him. And, they've got to get that figured out going into next year. That's really been their biggest position of struggle. But I just think the experience, Clemson can lock you down on defense when they really want to, and I think that's what will be the difference in the game. And UNC has really sputtered to the finish here.
Yeah, a few weeks back I was talking about Drake May and at least getting himself a chair at the Heisman ceremony and all that, but their offense has kind of sputtered since then. His numbers have sputtered since then, and I think Clemson's going to be a really intriguing team to look at the transfer portal, and especially at that quarterback spot, what potentially all happens there this offseason. I know that's going to be one of the top storylines for them, and then subsequently perhaps for college football as well, if there is a massive change there at QB. But, give me Clemson right now. I think that they're just overall a little bit better, and UNC not playing their strongest brand at this time.
All right, so there was one of the comments on the chat room about TCU and Kansas State before we get to our picks, which are there, about Kansas State has a tendency to knock people off in the Big 12 championship game. Their history is the opposite. Yes, they beat number 1 Oklahoma and embarrassed them in 2003, but they lost in 98 to A&M. That was an upset when Kansas State was number 2 in the country, then lost to number 1 Oklahoma in 2000, and they were 8th in the country, Kansas State. So, I kind of – then remember there was a gap of 6 or 7 years. There was no game. So this is their 4th appearance. They're 1-2. Upset once, upset somebody else once, and then lost to a team ranked higher than them in 2000. So here's their number 4, and they're underdogs by just a couple of points, 1.5 to 2 points right now against TCU.
Yeah, I think I picked TCU because I do think that they've got some destiny on their side, and that just made it happen. This should be maybe the best game of all of these we've got up there. I don't think there's really much separation between TCU and Kansas State when it comes to talent and execution, but I do think there's a little bit at the top for TCU, and I just think they very clearly see what's in front of them and have been able to be very focused. So I like TCU in this one, but I don't think that they're going to feel like they did last week in Ames where they could have played backwards.
This will be a good game. I'm riding with the mojo that TCU has right now. I don't think they're going to go into this game and all of a sudden not be locked in. I mean, they got Kazkazadi driving them. I think they're going to be ripped up, ready to go, and ready to play. I think obviously having Will Howard for all 4 quarters hopefully will make a difference for K-State. But I'm riding the hot hand here, and the hot hand's TCU, although K-State's warmed up pretty good here over the last few weeks as well to secure their spot in this title game. Should be a classic. Maybe classic's too strong of a word, depending on how you kind of throw that around. But I do think it'll be a great game, and either outcome's not going to surprise me one bit, really. I mean, as far as either team winning, wouldn't surprise me if K-State got the W. But TCU's made it this far, and I think they're going to make it another step further.
Kansas State had that early loss to Tulane that initially you're like, well, you can't do that, and you can't. And now we see where Tulane is. They lost to Texas at home, and they lost to TCU in Fort Worth in a game in which they led by 18, 28-10. And this is fun. I can't wait to just sit back, relax, and enjoy a bunch of games. Love to cover one of them, but we'll have a group of people there tomorrow for TCU and Kansas State. So there we are, dead even at the top. We have this week, and then are we going to do all bowl games?
I think we're going to have to, because especially if you and I wind up.
You know why bowl games are hard, though? Because of opt-outs and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, that adds a level of difficulty to it. But if Tulane wins, you and I will end this season tied. And we're not going to do a Nebraska and Michigan sharing the title thing. We're not doing that.
And yet, at the same time, if UCF wins and Craig wins it outright.
I mean, could, but we're going to do the bowl games anyway because we need content. We're a YouTube channel. We got to fill things up. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a college football show. We're not going to not talk, do the bowl games. I would imagine at least a share of them. Maybe not doing like the bottom of the barrel, type of games that start in a couple of weeks. But I definitely think we got to talk. We're going to be talking about them regardless. So you might as well pick them.
We might as well.
It might depend on whether Baylor might wind up in one of those, because there's some weird bowl math that could happen here. I don't know how many of our listeners look at bowl projections, but we're just trying. Jack and I have been trying to figure out all the different possibilities of where we're going to have to.
You should read Sam's article.
Yeah.
He breaks it all down.
Yeah, it breaks it all down. There's some weird things that could happen, especially, Buffalo kind of helps that out a little bit, but with some of the 5 and 7 teams in, and the fact that you have contracts, but the order of Big 12 number 3 doesn't mean you're in third place.
Nope.
It's just that's the third option that they get to pick. They're the third team that gets to pick about Big 12 team.
Rapid fire, and then we come back with Taylor McHargue from ESPN on the games this weekend, including today. UTSA North Texas. These don't count. I take UTSA.
UTSA.
Yeah, I'll take UTSA.
Toledo, Ohio for the MACtion championship.
Give me
9-3 Ohio, 7-5 Toledo.
Yeah,
I'll
go Ohio.
I'll go Ohio.
Troy and Coastal Carolina, 10-2 against 9-2. They didn't get to play the game with Virginia.
I'll go Coastal.
Give me Coastal.
I'm going to take Troy. All right, I think that's it. All the other ones we have picked as far as for tomorrow. Later on in the show, Scott Drew yesterday met with the media. Tonight in college basketball, Baylor and Gonzaga up in South Dakota. We'll hear a couple of comments from him that Jack covered that for us. Also, last night, Texas beat Creighton, 2 top 10 teams. The Longhorns win at home. They are, I think, for the first time in, 10 years or so, maybe longer, they've started the year with the record that they have. So that's another nice notch. Kansas won last night in men's basketball, too. So all of that and much more still to come, including Taylor McHargue from ESPN on 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home with a bakery and butcher shop, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, and also specials they have on turkeys and hams, smoked turkeys or raw hams, smoked turkeys or raw turkeys that you can get there. I walked in the door the other day, and there's a big bin for brisket. There's a bin of ham, and also there's a cooler, freezer of a bunch of turkeys as well. And then on top of that, the butcher shop. If you want to get your steaks cut like I do, the bone-in ribeyes to about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches, you can get that. They have Norwegian salmon that's delicious, and then whatever you want. Even have bacon cut exactly how you want and a certain type of flavor. Also, the butcher shop along with the bakery. Fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. They have all the knickknacks you need, like a grocery store, old-fashioned seasonings, sauces, what you need, they have it. And then, of course, on the right-hand side when you walk in the door, cold beer and wine. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
The Big Finish sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco, and we're celebrating this holiday season with an incredible lineup of all new 2022 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Gladiator, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. Jeep SUVs are known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Hurry in, find the Jeep that fits your family. If we don't have exactly what you want, we can order it today. Wrap up some of the best deals of the year and drive home today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, you're home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
1, 2. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's Tasty Oak Smoked Barbecue.
Next in line.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
McHargue end zone broken up and caught. Touchdown, Jordan Taylor. Wow.
It's time for our weekly segment with ESPN analyst Taylor McHargue.
We've already given you the one regular season game earlier today. Buffalo came back to win their game with Akron. Tonight, you have that USC-Utah game, and also Conference USA, UTSA against North Texas. Taylor McHargue will be at that game, and also at a game tomorrow, FCS with Incarnate Word, and what will be the new head coach, who will be the new head coach at Texas State. Taylor, thanks for your time with Craig and Paul, and I'm David Smoak. Your thoughts about UTSA and what Jeff Traylor has done. Frank Harris, who's been phenomenal at the quarterback position, and a rematch from a tight game earlier this year.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to follow. When I was playing at Rice, this is 2011, 12-ish, UTSA is they get the program going. They're starting to play Division I, and it's been really kind of remarkable to watch their progress from then until now. And I'm sitting here in the parking lot of the stadium about to go inside. And, guys, I mean, this looks like, I wouldn't say a Big 12 atmosphere, but the Alamo Dome, there's tailgates everywhere. There's people everywhere. All the hotels are full of people in UTSA gear. And I think it's just really commendable what UTSA, their fan base, what Jeff Traylor and this administration, what they've built. And I think if there's a team out of the six that's jumping into the American next year that I think could compete straight away, I think it's UTSA. I think they have the depth in recruiting. They're losing some big pieces, namely Frank Harris, like you mentioned. But, man, it really is impressive what they've built over a pretty short period of time.
Did he tell you, have you talked to Frank Harris this week? Did they get you on the call with him?
I have not. I'm down here because Trinity at the Division III level, UIW 10-win season, and UTSA all having great years. So ESPN, we're down here kind of getting some coverage of UTSA tonight to then talk about on our broadcast tomorrow. So I wasn't on any of the calls this week, but still excited to be in the building tonight.
Yeah, he does technically have 1 year left, so he could come back, in this COVID madness. Taylor, Utah and USC is tonight. That was a fantastic game that Kyle Whittingham, went for the two at the end of the game. Cam Rising got it, but USC has just been on a roll lately.
It feels like the back half of the season it looked a lot different for those two teams, and I think if there was a side that I liked here, it would be USC. That team feels like that's a hard team to beat twice. Lincoln Riley's a hard guy to beat twice in the same year. Like their side in this, and Utah down the stretch, that's the guys banged up, Cam Rising being one of them, like you mentioned. And, I mean, how good is Utah playing at home? That feels like such a different team when they get to play home as opposed to on the road or on a neutral site. So should be entertaining, but I think, it's under a field goal line here, and I think that's too little on the side of the Trojans.
If we popped in your old highlight tape, would it look a little bit like Caleb Williams?
Absolutely. Absolutely not. Before we played A&M, I don't know if we could ever dig it up, but Kevin Sumlin referred to me as a fullback playing quarterback. So I think a little bit different style. I ran the ball a lot. Our pickup was just a run option into the teeth of the blitz. But Caleb Williams has been unbelievable. If I had a Heisman vote, which I don't, but if I did, it would be Caleb Williams.
Well, I was going to ask you that. And does he have to win tonight, or do you think he is it no matter what?
I think it depends on what it looks like, right? I mean, USC gets into shootouts. If he puts up, incredible numbers and it's some awesome finish and it feels like everybody else is kind of losing out on the Heisman around him, and maybe even in a losing effort, if they go off and he scores, 5 or 6 scores in a game, he could still win it. I do think, however, he locks it up if they win tonight.
Taylor McHargue, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports. You have Kansas State and TCU tomorrow for the Big 12 championship game. That game at 11 o'clock on ABC. TCU is right there on the cusp, and who knows, maybe already a team that will make the playoffs. Do they have to win, in your opinion, even if it's a close loss? Do they have to win to get in the college football semifinals?
I don't think so. I think if they lose, especially close, but if they lose, I think they're still in. And given what the way that Ohio State lost, they got really beat down at home against Michigan. I think the committee, regardless of how they feel about the Big 12, I think the committee's not going to punish TCU for having to play another game, especially if it's close. Now, if they go out and lay an egg and they lose by 30 to Kansas State and they don't look, it's a poor effort, then maybe. But I don't expect that. If this is a close game, Kansas State wins by one score late, I think TCU still probably gets in.
I'm curious your thoughts on the ACC title game too, Taylor, because I don't know if I've ever seen two teams simultaneously lip into championship weekend.
I mean, that feels like the ACC top down. That conference, NC State, they weren't what we expected them to be. I mean, good Lord. Look at the first half of the year for Syracuse compared to the second half of the year. Notre Dame has losses to Marshall and Stanford, and they, I believe, went undefeated against ACC teams this year. I mean, it just was a disappointing year for the conference. Clemson, DJ Uyunglele, they have problems there. We've talked about that a lot, when I've been on with you guys and elsewhere. I think Cade Klubnik is probably the guy there, but we know how Dabo is with his loyalty, and I think that was to a fault this season. And then North Carolina laying an egg down the stretch. I think they still had dark horse, hopes and aspirations of possibly sneaking in. That's not going to happen, obviously, now. So it does feel like this championship Saturday, on the one hand, I love how the Final Four looks like it's shaking out. On the other hand, not a lot at stake tomorrow on championship Saturday. And I think, frankly, in my opinion, I know that these are the games that I called all year for the American, but I'm most intrigued to watch UCF and Tulane in the rematch.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, that's obviously UCF got them, a few weeks ago, back in New Orleans for this one as well. I know there's, some question about the overall health of UCF's quarterback room, but both guys, Keene and Rice Plumlee, have shown that they can do some things. What's most important to you in that game tomorrow for Tulane and UCF?
Yeah, I'm just going to be watching for, number one, who's in at quarterback for UCF, obviously, but then what adjustments has Tulane made? Tulane got torched in the first matchup by John Rice Plumlee and his ability to run the ball. Tulane played a lot of man defense and the RPO game and quarterback zone read game. He was winning the one-on-one matchups against defensive ends and linebackers. He was running away from guys, and Tulane didn't have an answer for it. And that was the first time really all season that Tulane's defense got exposed in that way. And I think Willie Fritz is too good a coach to let that happen twice. I also think it's worth, paying attention to and noting Willie Fritz was interviewing for the Georgia Tech job, and I know he didn't take it, but is there any sort of lingering distraction there? I don't think so, but you never know. But I do think, on all things created equal, that's a hard team and a hard defense to beat twice in Tulane.
So just today alone, in the last 24 or 48 hours, we've seen Drew Pine leaving Notre Dame, Haynes King leaving A&M. You've got Jurkovic leaving Boston College, Hudson Cards leaving Texas. I mean, the list goes on, Taylor, when it comes to the transfer portal and every position, but particularly quarterbacks. Have there been one or two that have raised your eyes more than others, or one or two guys that you're particularly interested in watching where they head next?
Yeah, just hoping one of those lands for my right out. I think, this is the story of college football now with quarterbacks. This year, over half of the FBS starters in college football had transferred at least once. And that is the story, especially out of recruiting now. You take the biggest offer you can with the most amount of NIL money, and you give it your best shot for a summer and a fall. And if it doesn't work, you leave, and there's no penalty for it. When we go through each week, one of the things I like to highlight is where kids transferred from. And it tends to be the guys that get the ball, right? It's your skill players. It's a lot of quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers where if they don't feel like they're getting the touches somewhere else, then they're going to go try and find another opportunity. And, there's only a few guys, especially at the quarterback position, but there's only a few guys that really get the bulk of those reps and the bulk of those touches. And I think it makes sense for a lot of guys, especially in the quarterback room. If it's not working out, the grass may be greener on the other side if you move on.
So G.J. Kinney is going to be the head coach at Texas State. Incarnate Word's playing tomorrow. You'll be into that. You were talking about Willie Fritz and how that kind of calmed down for Tulane. Your thoughts about, is that much of a distraction for Incarnate Word?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. And GJ's doing everything the right way. He's saying all the right things. But Texas State, down the stretch, I think we don't know all the details yet. And I'm not sure, I don't think anybody knows yet if Tulsa did end up offering G.J. Kinney the job. But I think Texas State knew that there was going to be a couple other options, and they locked down their guy. Well, now that, you've got a press release today. There's a video now of GJ wearing some Texas State gear, and all the while they've got to go. They're playing a game tomorrow against a pretty good Herman team that already has one win under their belt in the playoffs. So I think it's really just one of the unfortunate parts of the game where coaches in this arms race, sometimes you see at the FCS level and at the group of 5 level, if coaches are going to advance and take a step up, they do it at the end of the year when there's still ball being played.
Taylor, we finally got it. The Rose Bowl caved and the college football playoff expands in 2024. I know you're very pro-expansion. Your thoughts on that we're getting this a lot quicker than we thought?
Yeah, I've got a simple answer for why I'm in favor of it, and it goes against the point that people think it will water down the regular season. In my opinion, when you get to 12 teams, you create more meaningful games down the stretch. You have more teams that, even if they have an early or mid-season loss or two, if they right the ship and they go win a conference championship and they're one of those top 6 conference champions, they're still in. So now you've widened the pool all across college football. And this is one of the things we've talked about. We talked about it with Rhett Lashley at SMU this year. We said, hey, Coach, are you already talking with your recruits about, hey, if you come here and we win a conference championship, guess what? We're probably in the American Conference, either going to be them or like a Boise State, something like that. And that's a big deal to those schools. And I think it's also been sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy with the Georgias and the Clemsons of the world, where there hasn't been a lot of parity, because there's only been like 8 schools that could legitimately go into kids' living rooms and be like, you can play for a national championship here, or you can get into the college football playoff if you come here. There hasn't been that many schools. Well, now you have, no joke, like 70 programs now that can say, I mean, they're not going to win the national championship, but they can say you have a chance to go compete in the college football playoff here. Tulane would be in the expanded format, assuming they win tomorrow. Think about last year, they were 2-10 in the American. So I think just as a fan of college football, you get more meaningful games, and I think that's good for the sport.
Thank you, Taylor. Have fun and enjoy the weekend with what you're doing in covering the games, and also where you are. Enjoy that area. It's beautiful. San Antonio, UTSA, and North Texas playing tonight. And that is for the Conference USA Championship.
Yeah, I got some more transfer portal news here. In the last 2-3 minutes, 2 5-stars, former 5-stars have entered the transfer portal, and also a couple more Nebraska guys. Wide receiver Camonte Grimes has announced that he's entering the transfer portal for Nebraska, in addition to defensive back Jaden Gold. He'll also be entering the transfer portal. So Matt Rule, his roster changing, but obviously a lot of work to be done there. And then as far as the 5-stars go, Denver Harris, A&M freshman cornerback, has announced he's entering the transfer portal. And Theo Weiss, Oklahoma wide receiver, although that was kind of back and forth. Like, he announced, and then he said something about NIL the other day for Oklahoma, like support NIL. I was confused about that whole thing, but he's now apparently officially entered as well. He was also a 5-star, and that was, again, out there earlier this week, but it was just, I guess, an intention thing. So officially, Theo Weiss, former 5-star receiver from Oklahoma, in the portal. Denver Harris, former A&M 5-star cornerback, in the portal.
Wasn't he the one that was
he has had some off-the-field
trouble. He liked the attention, too. Yeah, so, okay. And Rule, there was the top commitment. You mentioned this, Paul, that Malachi Coleman, their highest-rated recruit, commitment for Scott Frost, Mickey Joseph, has decommitted and rules out along with his staff, like everybody is, if they can get out. That's one of the things about being in a championship game, is that even I remember Rule mentioned this in 19 and Aranda in 21, you kind of have a little bit of a later start because it's go time, although signing day is now the 21st is what Grayson mentioned, so there is some time from championship week. And then you have the bowl games and, of course, conference or semifinals for the championship. All right, when we come back, a couple of notes. There will be some of your text messages. We'll get to those. It was an interesting text from Frog fan Steve on Dave Aranda and his staff. And we'll get to all of those and more. And at 5 o'clock, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, his thoughts about the Cowboys. They play the Colts in what should be a game where they coast. And we'll also hear from Scott Drew on the game starting in about 2 or 3 hours with Gonzaga. This is 365 Sports.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season, and BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to the water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Faction brought up on the chat room, and also we've mentioned this a couple of times. Texas beat Creighton 72-67, number 2 against number 7. Texas separated early on in the second half, up I think by at one point by 11. Here comes Creighton. Texas does win the game, and that's another quality big-time win. Creighton's good. They got a big, tall drink of water. Shiremeyer, whatever, who can hit the threes. I think he may even be left-handed. So that's a nice win tonight. Baylor Gonzaga, we'll hear from Scott Drew around 5:30. Now, A couple of things going back to what we started with because of the news yesterday with Baylor changing the defensive coordinator with Ron Roberts. Question from, let's see, Steve Frogvan. He said, Steve Frogvan here, with utmost respect to Baylor and Aranda, would it be possible Aranda is might too esoteric? Maybe a bit too in-depth, in the depth of thought to be consistent winner at Baylor. I might be out of line as a Frog fan here, but I'm just asking. I have respect for Baylor. Wish him good fortune. Is Aranda truly the right guy? Yeah, there's any question about whether he's the right guy. He was not as bad as he was when they were 2-7 or clueless or overwhelmed. He was not as much of a genius when they were 12-2. And maybe this year not as sometimes it seemed confused with his team as they were at 6-6.
No, I think he's the right guy. I think he's figuring it out. And I think that there are certain things that worked out. And look, here's the other thing. The personality of your players changes too as you recruit and all that. And if the coaching doesn't match with that, the assistant coaching's not working, then you got to make changes. And I think that's really where they are right now. So, Ron Roberts probably really worked for guys like Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard and those guys. And maybe for this group of leaders, it just didn't work anymore. It's just how it goes.
Well, I think it's clear based on just some interactions on Twitter and whatnot that this was a well-received move by some family members and by some players themselves. So take Dave Aranda out of the equation. That tells me something if some of the players, current and former, and parents are, like, hey, good move. That was needed. I mean, that's not Dave Aranda. That's clearly like, yeah, something was off. I mean, I understand the quick trigger that people have to like make a determination on something, but it's year 3. They've all been wildly different. I think we need much more of a sample size before we start thinking about like who he is or who he isn't. I think we need, another season and another, obviously, a round of changes to see kind of where it falls ultimately, because they have been a 2-win team. They've been a 12-win team, and they've been a 6-win team. So no one knows for sure, but my confidence isn't shaking Aranda. I think if you look at this year, they didn't lose games because of Dave Aranda. That was a well-coached team. Like, there might have been play calls that weren't great, but like ultimately they were in position to win more games than they did. I think at worst they should have been 9-3. Because there are games that I think that they just flat out lost, and then they lost the coin flip games that they won last year. So they got lucky in some cases last year, and Tech misses a field goal at the end to send it to overtime. That could have turned into a loss, and games like that. They didn't get that benefit this year. They didn't get that benefit in any way, shape, or form this year. So, just a bad string of luck. Something like if you watched Baylor, though, and you kind of knew going in what they were, it was clear as day, week after week, like just something is not right here. And now that they've made those moves, I feel like with the timing of those and the fact there hasn't been a bunch of others already made, it was just like those are the ones that we're making first and foremost. I want to see, how they respond next year to those in particular. But I'm not worried about Aranda.
I want to read this from Colt Barber. He wrote an opinion piece on yesterday's news. And this is in the premium section, but it's been out for a long, long time. Robert's street cred as a defensive mind is impeccable. Wheat was brought on to replace Powledge, who's now, of course, co-defensive coordinator at Oregon, who was also the special teams coach. Because of Aranda's trust and personal relationship with them. To an extent, we can talk about on-field performance in 2022, but a decision of this magnitude was not made because of one disappointing season, not considering what we know now or not considering what we know about Aranda. Here's the part. It's appropriate to speculate on comments from the season by Aranda, and he did say this multiple times, coaches weaponizing items such as performance against players, going directly against the grain of person over player, culture strived for by Aranda since arriving in Waco. That doesn't mean he was specifically pointed at any one particular member of the staff, but he didn't just say that players were immature. He used that as well about members of the staff.
Yeah, you mentioned coaches and just something being off, and that was what was weird. You could never pinpoint because you didn't have the behind the curtain look. Like, we got a little bit of that, but not to the point that he's or anybody else is really going to reveal those things during that process, like during the middle of the season. So, then you find this announcement of these two guys being gone, and you're like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense now. It makes a ton of sense. That was clearly part of what the issue was, but it wasn't just on the field either. It was off the field, as you mentioned, as far as relationships and things like that, but it goes into recruiting. It goes into a lot of different facets. So they were moves that were in his eyes, clearly needed to be made and needed to be made now. I trust his judgment. I, again, think they're better than their record indicated, and last year their record might have been better than that team really was, ultimately. I don't know, but they closed strong. They won a Big 12 title and Sugar Bowl, so I'm not going to debate the 12-2 all that much. But, yeah, you can question certain things. The Gary Bohannon move, was that right in the long run? We'll never know, but that will always be a debate in regards to this season. But I think we definitely need to see some more and give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm nowhere near, questioning Aranda at this stage.
Yeah, he just completed his third year. One of the things about staff changes, especially early on in a coach's tenure, if you are just looking at the last two head coaches here, Art Briles and Matt Rule, Art Briles had his kind of staff built over years of them being together.
Yep.
Right? And same with Matt Rule. They'd been to a couple stops already with that group. And you see it now in Nebraska. A lot of those guys are going with him. Dave Aranda doesn't. I mean, he has guys that he knows and he's been with, but as a head coach, who are those guys that are going to be with him that are going to work? I don't know if the days are still going to be here where, guys like, Bobby Bowden have the same offensive and defensive coordinators for all this time, but those coaches that stay with you for 5, 7, 8 years, through a couple jobs or whatever it is, he's not to that point yet, too.
He's a young coach in terms of age. He's a young coach in terms of experience. But let's listen. Here, who of these guys were fired for production and who had better opportunities to move on? Larry Fedora.
Fired.
Needed to go.
Yeah. George Munoz.
Yeah.
Needed to go. Joe Wickline.
Yep.
All on the same day, within the same day. Brian Stewart.
He took a job.
Yeah.
Maryland?
Yeah.
He took
Matthew Pallage is the co-defensive coordinator at Oregon. Go ahead.
Brian Stewart took the defensive coordinator spot at Maryland.
Matthew Pallage, co-defensive coordinator at Oregon, and they had a hell of a year. Joey McGuire became the head coach at Texas Tech. So there's 3 in a row on performance in the positive way. Chancey Stuckey went to Notre Dame. That's 4. Ron Robertson, Ronnie Wheat gone because 5 of the 9 based on productivity following disappointment during the season. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, Cowboys in the NFL. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, not only for great customer service, great deal on your new vehicle, but also great customer service after the fact as well. You not only buy a vehicle from them and have a great time during the process of doing so, but after you do it, they're still going to be the people that you can count on for oil changes, for repairs, whatever the case may be. That relationship continues on, and they are, as I mentioned a couple times already, but it's their tagline for a reason, the people you can count on. Right now, they've got new trucks and SUVs. Cadillac is a gift that can't be beat. Make this a memorable holiday season with a car or truck from Richard Carr. Plenty of different models, sizes, shapes from Cadillac to GMC to Buick, all in stock right now. They've got dozens of Sierra trucks, dozens of SUVs, the biggest inventory they've had in 2 years right now over on the lot at Richard Carr. And right now, you get 3.9% interest for well-qualified buyers on those GMC Sierras and also the Terrain trucks. Also 3.99% financing on Buick Encores, Buick Envisions, and Buick Enclaves as well. And they also have dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock and under $20,000. Affordable, thoroughly inspected, and ready to finance. They have quality vehicles ready to reliably take you on the road this holiday season, and perhaps you just want to drive your car or truck a little bit longer, the one that you already have. Well, their award-winning service department is standing by to keep you on the road, and you can go to the website, richardcarr.com, to see their service specials and also set an appointment for quick and reliable service. For 23 years in Central Texas, they built a reputation as, guess what? The people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Whether it's buying new, buying pre-owned, or just getting service, call them now, go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your home for holiday favorites for parties or time with the family with various specials available while supplies last in store or ordering by phone, including 8 to 10 pound half spiral hams at $4.15 a pound, 12-pound pit hams at $4.35 a pound, 8 to 22 pound bone-in hams for $3.40 a pound, 14 to 16 pound whole raw turkeys at $2.85 a pound, and $4.80 a pound for 9 to 12 pound whole smoked turkeys, 6 to 8 pound mini pit hams for $5.99 a pound. Limit 4 of each item per customer. Call in advance to ensure availability or drop by Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Waco Custom Marketplace, your full-service butcher shop for customized orders or cuts of your favorite steaks or beef tenderloin or specially ordered prime rib roast. WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Jones in the backfield behind Shapen. Got a man wide open. Caught. Touchdown. Ellis.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. Mickey, because of our schedule yesterday with breaking news with Baylor staff, was nice enough to come and join us today. We appreciate it. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, I know the answer to this, but I have to ask it. If it wasn't the Cowboys, but somebody else at 8-3 against a 4-7-1 team in the Colts, would that game have been flexed out?
Are we in the flexible part of the schedule? Yeah, I think you're exactly right, since you saw what happened on Thanksgiving with the game on national TV at 3:25, the most watched game they've had. So yeah, I believe you're exactly right. Although it was the Cowboys, no matter who they're playing, right?
Yeah, Mickey, that's true. So I know that Terrence Steele had to miss for personal reasons today, and they've got some other bumps and bruises going on. But are they getting close to as healthy as they've been all year?
Yeah, exactly. I think today on the final injury report for the game, they had 5 guys listed as questionable, and I think they feel pretty good about all 5 of those guys being able to play. Anthony Barrs missed the last couple games with a hamstring, and he's been able to practice at a limited basis this week. So I think they felt good about him getting to go. Same thing with Quinton Bohanna. And then the 2 guys that were out with illness, Trayvon Diggs and Michael Gallup, are projected to be limited tomorrow, questionable for the game. So they're good to go. And they expect to have Terrence Steele back on Saturday after personal reasons. He had family issue, and he should be able to go. So, yeah. And if it's not this week, James Washington is right around the corner to be ready. They really like the way he's been able to work, even though having no off season because of injury, no training camp because of injury, but they've been really impressed where he's at. And then Tyron Smith, maybe by the Jacksonville game, he might be ready to go.
If, in fact, when he's ready to go, is it his career and history and who he is of why he gets his left tackle job back?
Well, I think it's going to depend on, just how he shows in his 2 ramp-up weeks. And, I could see them maybe easing him back in and say, okay, let me give you a series here and a series there. But I think Mike McCarthy said it best. What we want is our 8 best linemen active for the game, and we're going to make sure there's some flexibility where the 3 guys that aren't starting are able to play. So I mean, it sounds like it could be automatic, but I got the feeling he's going to have to prove exactly where he's at before he just walks in and plays 60 snaps.
Mickey, there's something that feels a little bit. I don't want to go down that road yet, but and I don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. But it feels like there's a chemistry between the coaching staff and the team going on right now that we really haven't seen maybe in a couple of years. Am I off there?
Well, I mean, the 2020 COVID year got to throw that out, right? I mean, they were pretty good together this last year when they went 12-5. I know things, kind of went downhill to 8-8 in Jason Garrett's last year, but let's remember what they did from 2014 through 2019 during that time when Tony Romo was healthy and even overcoming his basically total loss in 2016 with a rookie quarterback, by the way. I just think as a team, maybe not with the coaching staff, but as a team, they've got some pretty good chemistry going on. And I think there's some pretty good coaching going on. I think Dan Quinn's doing an excellent job in his second season. And I just think that, in his 3rd year, I think Mike McCarthy feels very good about getting this coaching staff together, because let's remember, when you take over, you don't get your pick of who you want to be your assistant. You might have a guy you love, but he's not available because he's under contract. So I think it usually takes a couple of years to put your staff together. And I think Jason Garrett learned that right off the bat.
Is Dak Prescott now been given the green light to start to run again?
I don't think he never had a green light to run. I just think he may feel more comfortable at times taking off. Now, I don't think you're going to see a lot of quarterback draws called, right? But at times, and I always thought this, when you're inside the 10-yard line, that's when I want to see him run, like a called play, because there's less room to build up speed, right? There's less room for the defense to come at you from afar and really knock the daylights out of you. They're safer runs. And again, if you can get a quarterback sneak for, 15 yards, go ahead and do it, right? So I just think he's getting more of a feel for the game after missing 5 games. And remember, he only played in part of one and didn't play in any preseason games. So you had to go back all the way to January for the last time he played before he came back. For a full game before he came back against Detroit.
Mickey, Monday's the day. Odell Beckham Jr. comes to Dallas for his visit. This is the first time the Cowboys have really, hotly chased a free agent in a long time because it's not their policy to go after big name free agents. And this is only a big name free agent because he's been injured and he's available now. But are you excited to see this finally come to its culmination?
You mean like one way or another?
Yeah, like just figure out what's going on, if he's healthy, if he can help, if he's going to be ready to play this year.
Because look, this whole thing's a bunch of guesswork so far, right? They haven't seen an MRI on his knee yet, and it's the same knee he had the ACL surgery 2 years ago, right? He hasn't played in a game since tearing that ACL in the Super Bowl. He hasn't practiced. So is it practical to think that he's ready to play once you sign him? How many weeks might that take? Last year when everybody refers to switching teams and what he did for the Rams, but he went through training camp with Cleveland. He went through the beginning of the season with Cleveland before they traded him. This year, we're talking rehab and maybe still rehabbing too. So the Cowboys have got to, and the Bills and the Giants have to figure out what's he capable of doing. Are you signing him for this year, for the playoff, or are you signing him for next year? So that's a big thing that they've got to find out. How healthy is he, and when's he ready to play? And by the way, he's talking about signing a long-term deal. I saw a quote from him that he wants to buy a house somewhere and be there for 4 years. He's tired of living out of a suitcase. So now it's how much. And, I don't know that the Cowboys know how much yet. And if it's 4 years, he wants guaranteed money. And let's remember, he's 30 years old. So you got to be careful there. And they're not salary cap free for the next 3 or 4 years, because they've got guys that they've got to re-sign. I mean, significant guys, CD Lamb, Diggs. At some point, Parsons is going to have his hand out, right? He didn't want to still play on a rookie deal. Schultz, if they want him back, they've got guys that they've got to take care of too. So they don't have the luxury of signing some guy to a $100 million deal over 4 years. That's not going to happen. So they're doing their part to say, hey, yeah, we want him, and hey, we'd be happy to have him, and we think he can fit on this team. But you haven't heard anybody saying we'll break the bank to sign him. So the culmination may be a visit, but I don't know that anything gets done immediately on Monday.
Mickey, I just can't see, just after everything you said, that is dead on about, there's so many positives about what he could bring, but there are, cold hard facts about it. Like, most of the teams that would sign him, and especially the Cowboys, given their policy on everything, this is essentially a 2-year deal that might have some dummy years on the back of it, but I would think the rest of this year and next year would be the most that he would get, promised out of Dallas, don't you think?
Yeah. If I had the cap in my hand, that's about where I'd go. And then I'd have to decide, because what does he come in here? Is he the third receiver? Because I don't think he's the first or second. If he can handle that, he may be the third option. If they get James Washington back, I know it's only a year deal and there's only 6 games left in the season, but they kind of liked him. That's why they signed him. So, yeah, and he's got to be able to swallow some pride and fit in. Now, all the players say the right thing about him, and that's fine and good. But you got to see it, because the last thing you need is a headache with a prima donna.
Mickey, they're on a roll. They have done this before, and then they've blown a tire. Paul mentioned he feels like this team, the camaraderie, whatever you want to say it. It's easy to say when they're winning. But I just, there's something about this team. I like the way I see one game. It can be offense, one game it's defense, one game it's both. They get after the football. They absolutely get after the football. And unfortunately, that loss to Green Bay may come back to bite them at some point. Who is right now, outside of Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, their next best defensive player?
Next best defensive player. If you're looking at the seasons these guys are having, I think one of the unsung guys is Leighton Vander Esch. I think that Donovan Wilson has had a heck of a season. As a matter of fact, I was told today it was near impossible what he did last week, playing through the flu bug that he was still suffering from, and he got out there and played the way he played. And I'll tell you what, there's two guys on the come. I think Sam Williams at some point will be more consistent. And have you guys kept an eye on Damone Clark?
Yeah.
I mean, he was second on the team, or tied second on the team last week with 7 tackles. And this is a guy that didn't have an off season, spent the entire off season rehabbing from having vertebrae surgery, didn't have a training camp, had to rehab until he was cleared to start practicing a couple of weeks ago. And now he'd been forced into the lineup 3 games in a row, I believe it is. And the first time he played, he ended up with 6 tackles. And he was only supposed to be out there for special teams. So I don't know if it's this year, but I will predict next year, somehow, some way, he will be a starting linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, Mickey, I'd also throw Dorrance Armstrong into
and I was getting to that because that's kind of who I'm writing about right now. The fact that, remember when they lost Randy Gregory, what everybody was saying, the Cowboys bungled those negotiations. What are they going to do? How are they going to, provide a pass rush when all they've got is Parsons? Because people were writing off DeMarcus Lawrence, right? And they forget Lawrence only played 7 games last year. He had 3 sacks. Well, he's got 6 sacks already this year. Dorrance Armstrong, unfortunately for him at the time, got re-signed to a 2-year deal just hours after Randy Gregory reneged on the deal he had agreed with the Cowboys and signed with Denver. And, that was like a ho-hum. We got Dorrance Armstrong. We don't have Randy Gregory. Well, Dorrance Armstrong has 8 sacks right now. It's a career high. And he's still got 6 games to play. And I know he's not gangbusters out there, but the guy continues to make plays. And when is the last time you've seen a 6'4", 6'5", 255-pound defensive end block a punt and block a field goal in the same season, by the way, and have 8 sacks? So, yeah, he very quietly has had a really, really good season, and he's taken advantage of the opportunity he finally got because he was always in somebody's shadow at defensive end. And as he told me yesterday, he said, when Randy left, and we love Randy, it was my opportunity to step up and win that opportunity to start. And while last year he played 44% of the snaps, this year he's already played 49% of the snaps. And I think we're seeing more plays. Same thing with Leighton Vander Esch. And I give him credit because last year at the end of the season, he really came on. And even though they lost the playoff game, he made 13 tackles. And I'll never forget this. And around May, when they were doing their charity home run derby deal, somebody asked him what clicked at the end of the season when you started showing that you can make more tackles in the game. And he goes, that's what you get when you put me on the field more. And I said, I love that. Damn. And he's proving it this year. And he's playing on a 1-year deal. And I think he's winning the bet on himself.
Yeah, Mickey, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Will McClay you would think other teams would beat the door down to get him after a lot of these personnel. Some of the stuff, some of the games, some of the back behind the scenes guys who have been under the radar, good college players who had to rehab or whatever. How much does he make with Dallas? Do you know? Could someone come in and money whip him and force the Cowboys to match him, or are they going to keep him no matter what? They won't let him go.
I don't think they're going to let him go. And I don't know if it's money whip, but they've given him enough to remain here. And he's got some family issues that would have some overriding factors on decisions he would make about leaving here. So I think that also is part of it. And I think he likes what he's doing and what they let him do. I mean, he's got a little bit of autonomy here. While everybody, either blames or at times would give credit to Jerry being the general manager, but they listen to Will McClay. He's got their ear. And the good thing about what he does is he's a great go-between between the coaching staff, the scouting staff, and the front office. And I just think he's one of the more valuable guys here. And I don't know what he gets paid, but I would imagine it's pretty much, and his name's not Jones, okay?
Oh, yeah. No, I get it. That's why I brought him up. I think he has really kind of helped solidify and make things make sense without too much of the up and down roller coaster of acquiring talent. Mickey, thank you very much. Cowboys and Colts Sunday night on NBC, Football Night in America. Colts are a terrible offensive line. Ryan has not been protected. Ellinger was sacked 8 or 9 times in one of his starts, or maybe his only start or so against the Patriots. So, man, that could get out of hand. And then again, that's why they play the games. I got a letter here from Mark Oberholzer. He's a principal at Canyon Lake High School. And the reason I want to bring this up is the World Cup was last week. Was that on Friday? When was the World Cup? Not Friday. It was Tuesday, whenever that was, Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember the day. But I had somebody reach out and tell me on Twitter that the principal at Canyon Lake High School, Mark Oberholzer, wheeled TV screens or whatever they do now into all the various classrooms and let the students watch the World Cup game. It reminds me of when I was younger, when that would happen, when something major was going on. And I sent him a note, and I said, that was just cool. Thanks for reaching out. I love soccer since the World Cup only comes around every 4 years, and felt the importance of sharing this with our students. I coached soccer 15 years. Both my girls are on the varsity team at Canyon Lake, and so I have a vested interest. I remember watching the U.S. hockey team when they beat Russia, the miracle game on ice, and I still remember to this day the impact it had on me. Hopefully, we can give a little bit to that our students to get a little bit of that to our students today. Thanks again for reaching out, Mark Oberholzer. I thought that was cool. The principal at Canyon Lake High School, just south. I think that's near New Braunfels.
Yeah, when I was in middle school. When the Winter Olympics were on, the teachers would let us watch a little of the Winter Olympics, and it helped. You're teaching geography and things like that. It's a lot more maybe interactive, especially in the 90s where you didn't have the kind of stuff that they do now, than seeing let's just point to the map and you tell me where that is. So it helps you learn things about it. The World Cup in '94 when I was in high school was in the summer, so didn't have to worry about that. But yeah, I think it's a great thing to let it see what it means to the rest of the world, the whole world, the World Cup. I mean, I don't know if Jack missed it, and I can't believe it, but the sequence between Korea beating Portugal 2-1 today and getting to advance to the knockout stage, while Uruguay, who was up 2-0 on Ghana and won, but they would have had to score a third goal to get in over Korea. That last segment, that was
Did you see the players
compelling.
from Uruguay? Did you see them following the officials? Yeah. By the way, Cameroon beat Brazil today, 1-0, but Brazil still wins Group G despite the loss. Switzerland advances to the knockout round as well. When we come back, Baylor and Gonzaga tip off here in a little bit. High school football in Texas. This is the Week 15, the quarterfinal round, and a game at McLean Stadium a mile from here. Harker Heights with University of Houston running back commit Rashawn Sanford against DeSoto, loaded up with all the players they usually have. That's tonight at McLean Stadium, and that's a 7 o'clock kick a mile from where we are. Craig?
Yeah, just leave you with another piece of news, just tracking transfer portal entries and also, declarations for the NFL draft, things like that. But just coming down, South Carolina corner Cam Smith is entering the draft. He'll be a high first-round pick. And then elsewhere, KJ Jefferson, Arkansas quarterback, announces he will return to the school in 2023. So one of the guys you thought might be on the move, will be back playing for Pittman and the Razorbacks next year.
I was wondering about whether or not he would move on. Paul, is Richardson have a decision to make at Florida? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean that's the one I think people are waiting on, and with the Jalen Kitna news,
he's been
this week,
dismissed from the team now.
Dismissed from the team, and yeah, they've got Jack Miller transferred in from Ohio State there this year, and he would be the starter in the bowl game, obviously, but I don't know.
Again, Richardson's got a decision. I mean, some NFL folks think that he's got the goods, and there's thought that he could be one of the top quarterbacks, not the top guy, but one of the first few guys off the board. I think it's too early to, on my end, confirm and go full. I don't know exactly how he's viewed right this very moment outside of just that kind of speculation. But there is, definitely thoughts from the scouting community that he's going to be a highly coveted guy.
So Kitna dismissed from the team after the allegations of child pornography. Pine of Notre Dame is transferring. Haynes King, Texas A&M, is in the transfer portal. Jurkovic is from Boston College in the transfer portal. We mentioned Oregon State's quarterback is in the transfer portal. And then you have there's a couple wide receivers. Old Dominion had a wide receiver. We went over a lot of that earlier today on the show. Jennings from Old Dominion, Iowa wide receiver Arlen Bruce, the fourth in the transfer portal. Chance Nolan, that's the one from Oregon State in the transfer portal. So and Iowa State did. In fact, Tom Manning out as offensive coordinator and Dave Andrew out as strength and conditioning director.
Yeah, and I feel like I was a little probably too hard on Drew Pine with my comment earlier. I think I just kind of dismissed it. That wasn't my intention. That won't matter for whoever catches the replay. I think he's a good player. I just think that Notre Dame can do better there. Like, that was the point I was trying to make. But I do think, given the circumstances, Drew Pine played well and played well enough to definitely earn himself some opportunities elsewhere. But I do also feel as though Notre Dame can go into the offseason market and, find somebody a little bit better for what Marcus Freeman is looking for. But yeah, Drew Pine will certainly have some suitors and did pretty well working with what he had to work with.
Our good friend Phil from Vegas, he used all of our names, including Scotty B, Paul Craig, you, me, 365 Sports, YT, YouTube. Yes, we even take wagers. He's in Vegas on the Rodeo Cowboys on the second round of the NFR National Finals Rodeo Bull Riding. They have wagers even on bull riding.
My dad used to go to that every year.
That was a good place for business trips to go. Vegas, and then I got two or three chats I want to discuss, and we'll get to Scott Drew's comments. Rich Boone, Craig, you mentioned some of the losses that Baylor had that should have been wins or should have been wins. What should have been the three losses? Was it Texas, K-State, and Oklahoma State?
Yes, I think Oklahoma State in Waco, I just think that they were the better team. That wasn't a big, broad final score. I think it was an 11-point win.
36-25.
Yeah, but I do think Baylor had opportunities in that game, but I just think Oklahoma State was better overall. Now, if they were to line up this week, I take Baylor over Oklahoma State because Spencer Sanders isn't healthy, clearly, and they're kind of falling apart. But, yeah, Oklahoma State, I think, just straight up beat them. Texas just ran all over them in the fourth quarter last weekend. And what was that other one?
Brigham Young.
No.
Was that Brigham Young? K-State.
Yeah,
31-3.
That was the most obvious of all of them. That was a complete ass kicking.
That may take a while to clean that out of your mouth. All right, Provo Cougar fan. ESPN Computer Predictor says Ohio State over USC, even if USC wins tonight. With an MS degree in computer science, I would like to examine their so-called unbiased programming code, talk a bunch of BS. That's not, I don't care what if USC wins, they're in the playoff.
Yeah, that might have been like them posting the wrong graphic again or something. Yeah. I know there's a big to-do about that like a week ago. There is absolutely no chance in my mind, or I think in even any minds really, that Ohio State would jump a USC team that wins the Pac-12 title. Absolutely. if there is a chance, it is 0.00001 chance. In my mind, I just don't see how you could justify that.
Terry Smith, when we were talking about Aranda, coaching staff changes, et cetera, changing the coaching staff during a season with too many losses keeps coaches on their toes. Current and future players need to know that, and most do. Go Baylor, win, and then your coaches will stay.
There was I'll just put it this way again. There was the father of a current starter that said basically good. There was the father of a former backup that was on the team up to last year that said about time. And there was another, I believe, father that had a comment from a current player that said similar. So take that for what it's worth, but that's not something that usually you see a lot of. And I did see that within hours of that report. So I tend to take that and digest that and think that, yeah, probably just. And then you look at the season itself and clearly the defense and the issues there, and I go, yep, it was pretty clear there were issues.
I'll also say this. We talked to Travis Roeder the other day. We talked about it here, but one of the things I keep kind of coming back to in my mind is I do think the roster is going to look maybe drastically different than even you think of. Yeah, there's going to be guys leaving because of graduation, but I do think there's going to be some guys that are, more guys go in the portal or maybe pointed towards the portal, and Baylor will probably be more active in the transfer portal than they ever have been, and we'll see. I just think that this team maybe needs that a little bit. Just kind of reset and find out, Craig, you keep saying it, who they are. Yeah. And that doesn't mean just scheme and all that, but like who really wants to be,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of pose that question. People are like, oh, well, they're defensive-minded. Well, no, they're not really. They would like to be. Oh, they're the RVO. I mean, I guess, yeah, that's if you wanted to pinpoint something, that is their identity. But even at times this year, especially the last 3 games, they weren't really that either. So, yeah, they need to reestablish themselves as a strong defensive team, a physical team. I felt like there are too many games this year where teams matched or exceeded their physicality, and maybe you point to youth in some of those places, but not when you have veteran offensive and defensive lines. They got to really revamp that back seven. And some of that's going to be guys leaving, obviously. But I do think that now you look at kind of the areas of need and you look at their recruiting classes, and there's probably, just to put it probably the most blunt way possible, there's some dead weight to cut. There's some guys on scholarship that probably aren't scheme fits any longer or fitting what they do or what the plan is. And so, yeah, I do think they're going to have to shed some players like most teams out there and go find some new ones.
By the way, you earlier mentioned if Iowa State could have just scored 17 points a game, they lost to Kansas 14-11, Kansas State 10-9, Texas Tech 14-10.
Yep. It's a bowl game.
So when we come back, Baylor and Gonzaga men's basketball. Baylor, I still am trying to clear what I saw in the loss at Marquette. With all due respect to Marquette, and it looks like Shaka's got players that will play the way he did at Virginia Commonwealth. He could never do that really at Texas. It had some success, but not a lot. It was shocking. And Scott Drew yesterday met with the media, and we'll have a couple of 3 comments from him on, one, the defense, which has been shredded, the scheme and how they can tweak things, and also, can he fix this? That next. Baylor, Gonzaga, preview with Scott Drew. A couple of comments just around the corner from their tip-off in South Dakota, and this is 365 Sports.
Genco's Black Friday Cyber Monday Auto Loan Special is here. Apply for your auto loan online and receive a 0.15% loan discount. Plus, every auto loan gets 90 days with no payments. Then have a chance to win 90 more days with no payments. Black Friday Cyber Monday only at Genco. This special runs till December 2nd. Every online application gets an additional discount plus 90 days no payments. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to gencofcu.org, member NCUA.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
This holiday season, shop the great selection of new cars and trucks at Allen Samuels in Waco. During the Big Finish sales event, get amazing deals on new 2022 Ram trucks. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, Ram trucks give you that first-class feel with luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom, and storage. If we don't have exactly what you want in stock, we can build the custom truck of your dreams and order it today. Hurry in, wrap up some of the best deals of the year on Ram trucks at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
All right, Baylor men's basketball. I'm kind of tugged in 3 different directions. There's a great high school game around the corner. There could be. DeSoto's a heavy favorite against Harker Heights, but we have covered and seen Harker Heights for a long time, including this year, and love their coach and Jerry Edwards.
Another top 100 Aggie in the portal, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yep. Offensive lineman P.J. Williams has just entered the transfer portal. He was a number 64 overall recruit last year. So there you go.
Yeah, that class that they put together the last couple of years is starting to, some because they had to leave because of issues, but also because of transfer. So Baylor Gonzaga, I'm trying to figure out. Go to DeSoto Harker Heights, which is a mile away. I got a credential. Go home and watch Baylor Gonzaga. And I'm not quite as hyped about that as I normally would be. Numbers, of course, defending the 2 years ago, the championship game. And don't you know Gonzaga, no matter how Baylor's playing, would love to just thump them. Or the college football game, USC, UCLA, and USC and Utah, and then North Texas and UTSA.
Here's what I'll tell you. I mean, you've got a credential, so it's not like if you're sitting in the stands. You could go over there.
And they got TVs in
TVs all over the place. So.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to really get all that, I don't know how competitive DeSoto Harker Heights will be, but if you're just looking for some high school football action, then yeah. But me, I'm college football all the way on this one, and I'll obviously check out Baylor Gonzaga. Kind of have to for the job, but I have no idea what to expect as far as that game goes.
Look, there's part of me that's very worried for Baylor's sake because of everything you said, Smokey, and there's part of me that thinks that, why not? Go out there and have the hottest game you've had all year and beat the Zags. So who knows? I just wonder how quickly they can fix those defensive issues against a team that always plays good offense.
And Gonzaga's been kind of stumbling out of the block, got hammered by Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both kind of very in similar spots right now. Texas, I'm not right. I still think Kansas, to me, is going to be the best team in the Big 12. But Texas adding Hunter from Iowa State, that's not just any transfer. That's a dude who is a number one on any team in the country.
Well, and Carr's playing well. Dylan Mitchell's playing well. And, I mean, they're just really pretty good, and they're deep, and they may have just the kind of – it looks like they might have a little something going on. And
really good
they've
defense,
beaten some really
scores,
good people.
Yeah,
and the thing about you mentioned Kansas. Texas is 6-0. The Big 12, everyone's 5-3 or better, and it'll be fun. All right, so Baylor Gonzaga. Scott Drew, we saw what happened against Virginia. They had the lead at halftime and then gave up what was a 20-something to 4 or whatever, give or take a handful of points, run, and just got obliterated. Defensively, he had no answer. And then that could have been a 100 spot or more for Marquette. They shut it down at the end. What about the Baylor defense?
Yeah, right there, defense. So still analytically the second best offense in the country, even after you have 16 turnovers in the first half and you're down 24-0 in points off turnovers. And that was really uncharacteristic of this team. I mean, this analytically has probably been one of the best teams at taking care of the basketball by far and away. So really surprised by the first half. That snowballed on us, but the consistent thing was defensively first and second half, we weren't very good. Even when we weren't turning it over and take those live ball turnovers and easy buckets out, our regular half-court defense wasn't very good.
No, it wasn't. And it just seems like right now, man, they probably need more practices and they need to be playing games. Gonzaga has 2 losses, got, again, beat by Texas by 19 in Austin, and then lost by 18 against Purdue. Purdue's a top 24 team. Jack McKenzie left. He'd like to have heard that. He's a Purdue guy. Now, the scheme. Can they tweak anything between what we saw Tuesday night against Marquette and tonight against Gonzaga?
After this last game, I think scheme-wise, we've tried to tighten up our defense and not get as extended and try to do a better job helping each other. I think we're leaving defenders on an island, and that wasn't working for us. And hopefully that changed. And then I think each and every game you play, hopefully you get better at handling crowds, emotion, adrenaline, because sometimes you have good habits in practice, but it is a different feeling, different level on the court, especially hostile environments. And they use that word, it's uncharacteristic of us, but you just want to have the same habits from practice to last 5 minutes of the game to sell out crowds on the road. I mean, what you do, you got to do all the time.
So that's Scott Drew.
We will change the scheme a little bit, tighten things up, hopefully be more ourselves and have those habits from practice carry over to games.
He sounds exhausted to me. My God, they're 2 or 3 weeks into the season, and it's not going the way they expect. But, again, he's had to turn things around before when they've lost Tristan Clark and all of a sudden went small ball, and look what happened after that. All right, now, one more problem. Is it fixable?
Yeah, that's a great question, too. First thing after Virginia was I thought, we got to call more timeouts and try to let things not spiral as quick. First thing after the game, could we have called another 1 or 2 in that area? And that's one thing. But I think the other thing is when you get better defensively, you get better rebounding the ball. Now you're able to overcome when you're missing shots. You're able to get stops, maybe get transition, get a couple easy ones, get a couple second chance, and those in momentum just as easily. So I'd be surprised if the turnovers continue. I think that was a 1/2 anomaly for us. But the defense has got to get better. The rebounding's got to get better, and that travels.
So there we go. Paul, Craig, is it fixable?
Yeah, it's totally fixable. They've got the athletes to do it. I do think they might have to, again, change up the scheme because they can't do some of the things they've done in the past with some of the guys they've done it with. I also think it bears mentioning that the teams the last couple of years had a long time with each other, right? So who on this team has really played together a long time? Adam Flagler and Flo Thamba. Nobody else really, and even L.J. Cryer's been there, so I'll throw him in a little bit, but he's been injured a lot, especially last year. He was injured most of the year, so he's still adjusting back in. Their other starters are, a transfer in Jalen Bridges, who's new to Baylor, a super stud freshman in Keontae George, but he's also still a freshman. And then you go down the bench, and it's Caleb Lohner. He's a transfer. He's new. Langston Love, injured all last year. Now, he's been in the program and knows some things, but as far as game speed against guys in different shirts, Langston Love has not been there. So when you kind of keep going down the list, this is a team that needs to build some chemistry, and their defense got so good over the years because they played together and had that defensive chemistry, and you could look at a guy and know that. I don't think they have that identity right now. Do I think they'll get it? Yes. I also think, and this has got to be probably a little challenging for the coaching staff as well. There's a pretty darn good coach that's in Manhattan, Kansas right now that they don't have, so they're probably adjusting a little bit to their new reality without Jerome Tang, who was here forever. So, Scott's been great at replacing people, but that's a guy that's probably harder than most to replace, at least in the short term, of, just the attitude and the things that he brought and, who steps up and takes those certain kind of roles.
I did love seeing the guy on Twitter, the random person I came across after the after the Marquette loss. It was a K-State fan talking about how they stole the secret sauce and ha 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 and was really enjoying himself. They turned around and lost the next night. I was just like, yeah, talk now, buddy. But no, I think all those things add up and have had an effect already. Now, can they? What the way you phrase that? Can they bounce back or can they fix it? Fix it to what extent? Fix it to go win a national championship? Probably not. No.
I don't even think that's on the table.
No.
Right now,
Fix it to go to the Sweet 16 or something. Maybe. But yeah, anything barring a tournament appearance is going to be a disappointment. So they got a lot of work to do, and they can't be one of those things where you like the football team of every week. It's like, well, we just need to this, and then it becomes 5 weeks deep, and you're suddenly having to win 4 out of your last 5 in Big 12 play to even make the it can't turn into that. So they've got time right now. Time's not always going to be on their side though, and so they need to really put out a good showing tonight, even if it's in a losing effort. Just you can't go out there and get blown out again, or there are going to be sirens going off left and right all around campus because of just the alerts of this might not be what we signed up for. So yeah, tonight will be telling, not the final marker of this team one way or the other, but if it's a blowout loss, that's going to be really concerning. If they bounce back and get a win, I think that would be a nice taste of medicine.
You know that when Mark Few and Scott Drew decided they would play this game, that they surely both didn't expect to have 2 losses.
No.
Not that they don't have a tough schedule. Gonzaga did beat Kentucky. Kentucky's up and down with their youth right now, but they did beat them. They beat them up at Gonzaga. So the game is going to be played at the Sanford Pentagon, 3,200 seats, small little arena. I don't know how many fans will be there. I'm sure they sold it out locally. The game is on Peacock. It is not on Fox or ESPN anything. It is on Peacock. So that's the only way you can watch it. This game also was set up as the possibility of an NIL type of thing. And teams or players even had a chance if they wanted to opt in or out of it. So they're going to be there. We'll see what happens. Baylor holds the nation's longest active streak of consecutive weeks in the top 10 in the AP 54. That is on the line even if they win because of how they were blown out by Marquette.
By the way, take note bowl games on NIL stuff. If you want players to opt in and maybe have a better game, there are guys who, normally would be like, well, I got to think about my money. Well, here's money right now. It's not going to be as much as you'd make in the NFL, but if you, got paid for that game.
Yeah, you can give them enticements, which in the past you gave them swag bags, right? Or which were pretty nice.
Now you get all that.
Hey, yeah. Look, there was one bowl one year I know that they gave everybody Xbox 360s back in the day. So, I think a lot of them would just rather have the cash because they probably have one.
Also tonight at McLean Stadium is that high school game, but at the Farrell Center, Baylor will be against Rice in the NCAA tournament, second round after they won against Stephen F. Boston. They play Rice tonight, 7 o'clock, and that game will be on ESPN Plus or Again, that one will be at the Farrell Center right around the corner. When we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5 to wrap up the week. And this is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Welcome back. The Top 5 at 5:55. The Top 5 transfer quarterbacks. Try to do this as fast as I can.
Yeah, because tonight it was changing an hour.
It'll change. Well, and yeah, and Drew Pine. Like I sent the list off to Emery, and Drew Pine came in, and I had to think about where I'd put him on this list, and he would be 4th, 5th, or 6th. So I decided to just kind of leave it as is. Emery and I did talk about it before the show because I actually did, cross up my Malik's. So to speak. But number 5, Malik Hornsby from Arkansas. This guy is one heck of an athlete. I don't know if his future is totally at quarterback, but he is fast, and we'll see. And so my prediction on him, I said it to Garrett earlier, this seems like a guy that Lane Kiffin would go get. Fast quarterback, can build a system for him. It's a running offense there that he's got. I know Jackson Dart is there, but Lane could kind of sneak in there and be like, look, hey, come in and you're a quarterback totally. And then all of a sudden, like, what if you just tried wide receiver for a minute? Or we'll build a package for you and all that stuff. But there's going to be a lot of people after Malik Hornsby because of his athletic gifts, which are superb.
What is the? I just walked.
Top five transfer quarterbacks.
As of
like
now,
just
because
overall transfer quarterbacks?
Yeah, as of right now.
In an hour, it's going to change.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's got a lot of work to do, man.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of rough edges to polish. He's a superb athlete, like you said, but definitely needs to work on the passing game some from what I saw. And, dynamic dude that I'm sure will have plenty of suitors lining up. But, if you find him in the right offense, then he could be really dangerous for you. I don't know exactly about Lane Kiffin because of, like you said, Jackson Dart and just the plans that they have there. But, Hornsby is going to be intriguing just because of just, what a dynamic player he can be.
Yeah. And I also left Luke Altmaier off this list, even though he was a highly recruited guy. We just haven't seen a whole lot of him except for the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
So, number 4, Chance Nolan. Look, he had some injuries, but this guy's got a lot of yards passing in his career at Oregon State, and he's a veteran. So if I'm him, like the thing I'm looking for is a team that I can just kind of help be over the top and control things because he's got a lot of skins on the wall when it comes to stats, but he's had some injuries. His, stats this year weren't that great, but I do think that this is a guy with senior leadership, somebody who's been through it and can help a team that needs a quarterback. If that's the missing piece to maybe competing for a conference title, I would certainly take a chance on Chance.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, he's played in a lot of games, but had a lot of neck injury, or had a neck strain was one of the injuries that he was dealing with this year. So, looking at this year's stats, I'm not sure how appealing he's really going to be, even with the injuries included. Not a very good year from him at all before Ben Gulbranson eventually took over. So, just a little bit of a showing to base off this year, but he also, obviously, as you mentioned, played in some games the prior couple of years. So there's enough tape on him to get a good idea of exactly what you're getting. But yeah, not a sexy pick based on 2022 in any way, shape, or form.
No, and that's he's the one I debated. I mean, the bottom of this list was really tough, and especially with Drew Pine, jumping in literally 40 minutes after I sent the email to Emory today through the graphics. Number 3, Phil Yurkovich from Boston College. This is someone I think in the right system is going to do really well if he can stay healthy. Now, he's had a couple of weird injuries. This year, I don't think you can look at his stats. The offensive line was absolutely shredded by injuries at Boston College this year. And they got a couple of, big wins. They got one win over Louisville that, everybody in Louisville thought was going to get the coach fired, but he rallied from that point on. But I think Phil Yurkovich, if you're out there waiting for a quarterback, a guy who's tough, can do some things, I wouldn't call him necessarily a dual threat, but he can move around a little bit, big arm. Yeah, I would certainly give him a call.
Is he that prototypical Boston College quarterback?
He look, his name, what about him, his name, his build, he looks like a Boston College quarterback, right? Yeah. But, I think there's a lot of places that fit him well.
Yeah, and it's been bothering me for like an hour, kind of like the Drew Pine thing where I felt the need to clarify, but I say Yurkovich, and it's been bothering me. Normally you wouldn't call yourself out, but I feel like I need to because that's been bothering me. But, he's a good player. I think he'll make a really good veteran, get for, any team out there in need of a quarterback. He's got experience in a couple of different systems, so he's not somebody who's necessarily like a Malik Hornsby. It's like you've got to make sure that you don't have to pass the ball a lot with Malik Hornsby, at least right now, to have success. You're going to have to base around him and his running ability. But with Yurkovich, you can do a lot of different things with him. Got a lot of skins on the wall. Been around a long time, it feels like, at this point. So I think he'll definitely be a guy who's highly sought after.
Yeah. Number 2, Brennan Armstrong from Virginia. Again, I try not to base anything on this year, but this is a guy who had racked up some stats and racked up some good stuff going into this year. I thought Tony Elliott and he would work out, but you just kind of understand with the way that the season went and the tragedy that happened there, wanted to finish out at some place where maybe you can win a little bit more and can grow your town a little bit. So I like Brennan Armstrong. I think Brennan Armstrong is one of those guys that Notre Dame really needs to take a look at. Although I've seen reports that Tyler Buckner is going to maybe play in the bowl game since Drew Pine won't.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got 2, right?
So,
I think it is going to be Buckner.
Yeah, so, but I do think Notre Dame will look at him. I do think that this would be a guy that Miami would be crazy not to look at in their own conference. But, I think Brennan Armstrong can help you win some games if you are ready to go around him. Now, if you're still kind of building, then I don't think it'd be a good match.
So are we all out on Tyler Van Dyke at this point in Miami?
I am. I just, he played really, really poorly. It doesn't look like he's a fit for that offense. And they were so not confident in their other quarterbacks. And look, the only game I watched them top to bottom this year was the FSU game, which was maybe by far their worst game, although they might argue Middle Tennessee State because that shouldn't even have been a thing. But he got hurt in that game. And they trotted him back out for a series, and he couldn't throw the ball 4 yards in front of him.
Yeah, it was a very bad follow-up year for him.
Yeah, it just didn't look good. He might need a fresh start. And look, he might get a fresh start somewhere. Maybe you stay at Miami if you're him or not. But.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's, their fan base, and I'm sure Mario are going to want to shake the branches a little bit and figure out what they can find that could be better. And I certainly think they can pretty easily do that based on this year, in a lot of different areas, including at quarterback. I was just asking because that was a name that definitely at the beginning of the year you thought had some potential to have a good follow-up year. But, yeah, I mean, Brennan Armstrong's played a lot of football, obviously a very tough year. Just overall at Virginia, and especially the way that it all came to a conclusion. But, veteran dude, seen a lot of snaps, pretty talented guy. I do think this year kind of muddies the water on just how good he is because it was such a weird year, I felt like he had a lot of momentum coming into this year, though. So, I'm sure he'll get more than a few phone calls and will definitely be a desirable guy.
Yep. And number one, we talked about him at length yesterday, but I think Hudson Card is the guy. I mean, I know he hasn't played all that much, but, based on what we know of him, and this might be just, bias from the state of Texas, I just think he's probably the most ready to go in and help somebody. At a big program too.
I think that for me, he's intriguing because he's shown a little bit of something in various areas, but I've also not seen as much of him as I've seen of a lot of the other, or not so much a Hornsby per se, but definitely compared to the more veteran guys who started entire years or played multiple years of starters. We haven't seen that out of Hudson Card just yet. So I think there's some of that, we've seen glimpses and he's just maybe scratching the surface and and are excited about what he could do. But yeah, I think he's a highly, heralded guy for a reason coming out of Texas. And based on what we've seen, there's good reason to believe that he could be that hotshot quarterback that really lights a team on fire next year. I'm very intrigued by him. I'll just go over here I've got the full list in front of me, just some of the names on here. So you got your Kovic, Chance Nolan, you mentioned, Padilla from Iowa, Pine from Notre Dame, Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech, and I'm skipping over names here.
I'll tell you, I might kick myself on Jeff Sims, but I do think he's turned the ball over too much. Can I kick you? Yeah, you're good. I'm
not doing this to say point out. I'm just saying I finally got a list that I saw that has all of the names on here. Davis Brin at Tulsa, I think is going to be really interesting. Actually, 2 Tulsa quarterbacks because Braylon Braxton also went in, but Brin was their main guy when he was healthy. Altmaier, you mentioned. Bachmeier from Boise State obviously was not leaving with a whole lot of momentum, and they've found much better in Taylon Green now. Kyron Drones will be intriguing, but he hasn't played a lot, so he doesn't belong in this group of guys, but his measurables and all of that will definitely be something that attracts some guys. Lane Hatcher from Texas State's played a good deal of football, so and again, there's 15 names I didn't mention that we can get to at some point or another. But there's already 25, 30 quarterbacks in the portal. It's crazy.
And there's going to be an FCF stud down there that somebody's going to try and go get because
there'll be a Cam Ward.
There'll be a Cam Ward there.
There'll be someone like that. Okay, Paul, thank you very much. We appreciate it. So many of you again, as always, we appreciate you. Joel, Glenn, Raymond, Steve, Paxton, Michael, Scotty B, the 214, the 321, the Paul, all of you, Caleb of Michigan, some of you who have sent us text in the last day or two. I tried to respond to a handful of them earlier today and even throughout the show. and all of you in the chat room. And we appreciate those of you who are with us every single day. Hit the like button when you can. Spread the word when you can. See you again Monday at 3 o'clock. We will. Thank you, Retired Stockbroker, $2 Super Chat. Great show again, guys. Thank you as well. We appreciate the great chat room and Super Chat. Have a great weekend. Starting tonight, starting this weekend, we will know who's in the championship semifinals and championships of conferences. Paul,
and
Craig,
bowl games.
And bowl games.
By the time
we'll know
they come
that.
back. Yeah.
Emery, Jack, Levi, Jacob, Garrett. Have a great weekend. I'm David Smoak. Good night, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills.